All right. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard. Thursday night, halftime of the football game between the Buffalo Bills and the Miami Dolphins. We'll see if they play the second half or not. Buffalo waxing them down in Florida. We are sitting here on September 12th. The Giants are 0-1, headed to Washington, and a scare on Thursday as we come out of the locker room. Malik Nabers acting subdued, solemn in the locker room, towel over his head, being asked by teammates if he's okay. And then we come out of the locker room, and minutes later, the injury report comes out and tells us that Malik Nabers has a knee injury and was limited in practice, that he sustained something during that practice. Now, fortunately, I was able to track down several sources in and around the team and the situation. And here is the latest on Malik Nabers. Sources tell me that the number 6 overall pick is, quote, okay. One of the sources said he experienced some tightness in his leg during practice on Thursday. Another called it soreness. And another source said that Nabers is, quote, 100%, while somebody else said not much concern. Had another person said he got a little banged up. So a lot of different versions of the same comment, which is, yes, something happened, but as of right now, it doesn't sound like alarm bells are going off. Now, obviously, you and me, and I'm sure the Giants want to be cautious with this, but also he's such a key part of what you need to do on offense. If he's ready to go, he's ready to go. Now, so we will see how they proceed with his Friday practice regimen and the reps they give him there. As of right now, based on everything people are telling me, it appears that he's on track still to play on Sunday. The Giants have been known to, in certain situations, try to err on the side of caution. But a separate source told me that Nabers doesn't even require a scan. It's not like he's going in for imaging, like extra imaging to double check that it's not something worse. As of, 2 hours ago, that was about 7:45 p.m. that I was told that. So that's all good news, obviously. Hopefully can breathe a sigh of relief from that. But the main thing I want to talk about, and this folds into it now with Nabers being limited in practice, is how can the Giants find an offensive identity? We've talked about the worst case scenarios here, how bad it looked in the season opener. We all know lowest scoring team in the league coming out of week one, haven't scored a touchdown yet, 2 field goals, including one when the offense got the ball at the 20-yard line due to a takeaway by the defense. But to me, forget about, hey, Daniel Jones has to play better. Yes. Brian Dable has to call a game better. Yes. The receivers have to be able to catch the ball better. 5 drops in that first game. All those things are true. Offensive line has to block better. But to me, I look at the game, I review the film, and I talk to people around the league, and I feel like the Giants are still scrambling to find an offensive identity. They do not know what they are, nor do they know, it appears, what they want to be. Clearly, based on what John Runyon Jr. confirmed for us after the game, they intend to be a team that can run the ball much better than they were able to in that first game, with Devin Singletary as the primary ball carrier and Eric Gray working in behind him, and then Tyrone Tracy Jr. as kind of the third option. Wan'Dale Robinson had a swing pass that went for 14 yards. But the bottom line is this, in my opinion, not only do they want to run the ball better, and not only do they have to do that better than week one, to me, that has to be a huge part of their identity, because I think Tim McDonald, the director of player personnel, said it best in Hard Knocks when he said, what is going to be our identity without Saquon Barkley in this offense? If Daniel Jones is our quarterback, we need a running game. My proposed solution, yes, listen, if the blocking assignments aren't better, it's not gonna matter. If Daniel Jones's passing game doesn't take pressure off of this, it's not gonna matter. I think Tyrone Tracy Jr. has to be a focal point in the game plan going into Washington. I think this rookie has juice. I think he falls forward on his runs. He's got strength to him. He's not built like a rookie. I think he was underutilized in the first game, putting Eric Gray on the field before they put him on the field for a carry. I thought was a mistake and misusage. And I think they need to correct that. And that's where I would start. We're going to get into more of that. First, want to tell you guys about our brand new sponsor, MyBookie. Jumping on board with Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard. Grateful to have MyBookie here. It's a great website, a winning website. I personally, looking at the lines this week, every week I pick the spreads for every game. being working at the New York Daily News, I have my eyes around the league. Last week, I cashed in with a best bet of the Chargers covering against the Raiders, and I'm going right back to the Chargers covering against the Carolina Panthers on the road. It's at -5 right now on mybookie.ag. And so that's my best bet of the week. I think you guys will really enjoy some more content coming from me on my social channels and on here, discussing betting lines and trying to give you guys some advice, but also some direction on where you can basically have the most fun watching and placing wagers on your favorite teams and game. So it's MyBookie's 10th year anniversary as we partner here with Talkin Ball and MyBookie, and they're rolling out the red carpet for bettors, risk-free Thursdays, weekly no sweats, win-win bets. We're going to have a promo code coming up that we're gonna get going, that you can use a promo code that comes right from Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard live over to mybookie.ag in the coming days. So look for that on a future episode, maybe at our post-game live after the Giants game in Washington. But even if you've already been playing MyBookie, they've also got something for you too, a brand new loyalty program, rewards program called MyBookie Plus. It's simple. The more you play, the more you earn. You go through tiers, unlock exclusive promotions, and epic giveaways and cash back in your account. So whether it's an underdog upset, a backdoor cover, whatever it is, MyBookie is there to help you cash in on every single moment. Make your football season a winning season with MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Also brought to you here by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. I personally have felt a post-workout-like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. So remember, boomchaga.com, go to subscribe and save, order and put the code TalkinBall25 in. That's how you can get the discount, and then you can cancel anytime. Also brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee, all natural specialty coffee with no sugar that is convenient for on-the-go coffee drinkers. Takes me less than 10 seconds to make a delicious Estate 98 iced coffee and only a minute more to make a hot coffee or a latte from this all-natural concentrate. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. And right into our questions. And DKIT leads us off with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much, D. He says, Pat, thank you very much for your time today. It was a terrific Spaces on X. You did not disappoint, and you received rave your reviews. Hope you enjoyed it as well. Hopefully you will do it again. DKIT, thank you so much. Yeah, so I jumped on a Twitter space with DKIT and a lot of other Giants content creators and fans and loyal followers, supporters of Talkin Ball, and also some people who found out about what we're doing. Thanks to DKIT letting me plug what we're doing here on the YouTube channel at PL on NFL and also on the Believe Network. So this is possible thanks to the Believe Network. And you can listen if you don't catch the live or you jump in late. You can always listen to the full episode on audio on either Spotify or Apple Podcast. That's also where you can get all of my podcasts, including guests coming on the show. I have one about to drop with Logan Paulson, the former Washington and NFL tight end, who now is a sideline analyst and reporter for the Commanders, has a couple Commanders podcasts as well. He gives me a really great breakdown of Jaden Daniels, Washington's O-line, Washington's defense, and we talk about how we think this game is going to shape up and go. A pretty good X's and O's conversation from a former player. I think you'll love that. You all know that Benny Fowler, Super Bowl champion, former NFL wide receiver, is on board. First Down with Benny Fowler every Monday. He and I break down the weekend's games in the NFL. That's a lot of fun. We go around the league. It's not just Giants talk, but we do weigh in on the Giants. Benny did play here and has good relationship with Daniel Jones and had a good time here in New York and with this organization. Won a Super Bowl with the Denver Broncos and Peyton Manning, and absolutely knows the league inside and out. And then, of course, as DKIT promoted to the Spaces today, And as you all know here, as we sit here now on YouTube, these Talkin Ball lives have really taken off. They're a lot of fun. And we do these on Mondays and Thursdays at halftime of Monday and Thursday Night Football. And also after every game. So that's Talkin Ball post game live with Pat Leonard after every Giants game, home and away from the press box. I go live after I come out of the locker room about 90 minutes after the game ends. And we talk about what we saw on the field, what I heard in the locker room, what my sources are telling me, and what the players are saying. So with that said, DKIT, thank you so much. And thanks as always. You are always one of the people setting an example for how we run this, which is put a question into the queue and I will get to it and I will answer it. But if you want your comment or question answered first, you can purchase a super chat like DKIT did or a super sticker, and I will read it immediately. It'll jump right to the top of the queue, top of the chat. If you don't want to purchase a super chat or super sticker, or even if you do, please, while you are in here at some point, hit the like button while you are live, while I am live. That does a great job of telling the algorithm that Giants fans and NFL fans are coming in here and they're liking what they're seeing. That is how YouTube recommends this to other NFL fans, other Giants fans out there who haven't seen it yet, who aren't familiar with what we do. And it helps us continue to build the community. So thank you so much, DKIT. Ken in Wisconsin says, Pat, did you ever learn why the Giants only had 51 players on the roster for the Vikings game? Ken, I think it had something to do. I asked around. I think it had something to do with vested veteran contracts and trying not to get locked into certain guarantees. Amounted, it seems, in a lot of ways to bookkeeping from the Giants' end. Still trying to dig into how dramatic of a loss or impact it had on the players. I mean, from what I could tell, it didn't seem like the players were reacting incredibly upset to it. So I think in large part, it was a financial bookkeeping matter on the Giants' end. But Ken, I'm still working on figuring out why this is necessary now, because we've seen that happen during seasons, but not as much in seasons. And so I still need to get to the bottom of exactly why they felt like this was necessary now. But I'm trying to get more information to that, but it doesn't seem like it was too alarming of a reason why, I guess is the point. But I will say this, for a team that needs players, it's frustrating to see, like, for example, they didn't even have their punt returner on the field, right? He aggravates an injury in warmups, and then you look and they only have 51 players. Could you have added 2 players who could have helped your team? Like that's part of what goes through your head, right? Chronicles says, remember the days where there were only 10 people in here? Yeah. Yes, I do, Chronicles. It wasn't that long ago. You were one of them. Thank you so much. Hunter was one of them. DKIT was one of them. A lot of people in here, loyal followers, day oneers, as I call you, Joey B, Authentic, etc. Lots of you. And so now we're crushing it. Thanks to you guys. As Ken says, boom, chaga. That is right. Hunter says, watch Tua right now makes me forget about the picks Danny Dimes threw last week. That's funny. Yeah, NYC1Ts says, thanks for joining the spaces today. Yeah, that was great. 1T was in there as well. Let me ask you something. Any idea what the reactions were around the building to Penix going 2 picks after us? Reactions around the front office or even the beat? I think it wasn't a shock to people, NYC, that Michael Penix Jr. went high in the first round at all. Definitely, no one in the league believed that Atlanta was going with a quarterback. Like, if you remember, actually, in Hard Knocks, when they were looking at what was going to happen on the board, they were projecting Joe, Shane, and John Mara were talking about if they could trade back and still land a position player, right? And because they were saying they could even possibly, if certain guys were off the board, they could trade back. And I think didn't they say maybe get a Dunze, like trade back and still get a Dunze if the board fell a certain way? And in that conversation, I believe they both mentioned the Falcons will probably take an edge rusher, right? I think they said like Dallas Turner or Latu, right? UCLA guy, I think. So you could see inside the Giants, that's what they were preparing for. And that's largely what was happening around the league. NYC is that, and listen, not to pat myself on the back. I've been wrong about plenty of things, but I was telling everybody, you guys who were in here in the spring, I was telling people in the spring that Penix Jr. was going to go high. Like there were these debates early on about, is this guy a second rounder? Is he a first round? Is he a first rounder? I saw him on the field one time and I was like, okay, so he's a first rounder. Got it. So the whole thing about his injuries and what that was going to mean about where teams took him, that was obviously a conversation. But talent-wise, he was a clear high first rounder. It was just about, okay, he's older and he's got the injury history, which is not nothing. But, like the Raiders, as you saw, the Raiders definitely were a team that everybody had circled and pegged. And so, around the league, in our beat, in the Giants building and around at other teams too, it wasn't that he got picked that high. It was that he got picked that high by the Falcons. That was the reaction. Dave Z says, here's to hoping that Nabers' knee holds up. Dexter Lawrence and Nabers are the only positive the Giants have for the fans to look forward to. Mel says, always, Pat, always love. I got the perfect quarterback for us, just waiting by week 3 to 4 to see if they still keep 3 on the roster. They're causing fatigue injuries. It is concerning when guys keep going down in practices, right? That's not something you want to see. Dave Z, another legend, says, Pat Leonard, the man, the myth, the legend. That's right. Same right back at you, Dave Z. I appreciate you. He says, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. Grab some Boom Chaga, pour it in your Estate 98 coffee, and go read some New York Daily News articles to make sure we can keep getting these awesome live streams. Dave, thanks for saying that. I really appreciate that. And I'm glad you reminded me of, the super chats. Really appreciate that. Anything you guys do in here, even if it's just asking a question or you're just watching, or if you're just hit the like button, but you don't ask a question, that's great. The thing you can do most to support this channel right now is buy 1 bag of Boom Chaga using my code Talkin Ball 25 on subscribe and save, and try it out. You can cancel the subscription and you don't have to stay locked in. But it's a great way to support our channel right now. Reminder, we do have trivia coming up a little bit later in this episode than we usually do, but we do have trivia coming up. And whoever gets the trivia question correct will end up getting a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee mailed to them. So at some point soon, after I go through some of our other super chats here, we're going to do an NFL. We usually do a Giants themed trivia, and whoever gets it right in the chat. So I'm going to ask a question. Whoever gets it right in the chat is going to win a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. It's going to get mailed directly to you. If you win, you're going to direct message me your address on Instagram, PL on NFL. That's where you'll DM me your information. It could be a PO box, your address, wherever you want it sent, and I'll send it out to you forthwith. By the way, if you're here, I believe it was MJ who won the trivia 1 or 2 live chats ago, and MJ never DM'd me his address. So remember, if you win, be sure to direct message me your address on Instagram. That way, I can mail it out to you, and I don't have to come chasing you down. Right? All right. Let's see. Peter Randazzo. Peter, another loyal follower here, says, Pat, I was around in the 70s with empty stadium bags over their heads and planes with signs flying over the stadium. That's right. That's a really good story. Burning jerseys now. How will Mara react to these kinds of things? So, Peter, that is what gets John Mara's attention the most, and ownership in general with Steve Tish as well. But I wrote a really, I think I was honored to, like, John Mara granted me a one-on-one interview, I think in 2018 now, which, wow, that's a long time ago now. But I think it still holds true, kind of the point that I addressed in that story. I talked to John for maybe a half hour or 45 minutes in his office and wrote a profile on him. And one thing that really stood out is he is his father's son. And that I knew that going in, but he revered his father, how he ran the team, how he believed in what a team should be, how he adjusted from the dark days, how the team turned around when George Young came in, and then Bill Parcells and Bill Belichick. And above all, one thing that he is very much his father's son on is listening to the fans. And the fans tell John Mara and tell the Mara family, and they always told Wellington Mara what the state of his team was, when it was time to make a change. You know, Wellington Mara always believed that the fans would, with their ticket sales, with their presence, with their outrage, with their message, would let you know when it was unacceptable and when it was time to make a change. And all the planes flying overhead and all of those images from the dark days, right? That is some of the things that you've seen here, right? Like, even think about the benching of Eli Manning and Geno Smith going in, and then the outrage from former players, right? A lot of some of their legends now are being celebrated this year in the 100th season. Think about the outrage of fans. There were billboards going up. There were fans, like they are now, talking about boycotting the team, things like that. That got their attention. They fired McAdoo and Jerry Reese immediately. Even though John Mara had signed off on the decision with Eli, the blowback from the fan base and from the former players is what sent everything way over the top in that regard. And so, you look at where we sit today and where this team is right now. And I got to tell you, Peter, it is absolutely reaching the owner's office that right now, the fan base is so disgusted that people are talking about, I'm a season ticket holder, but I'm not going back until something changes, as far as like this offense putting, competence on the field. There's people, who was it? Alex in one of our recent chats said he was going food shopping after the game last Sunday, and he took his jersey off before he went out to the supermarket because he didn't want to be embarrassed to be a Giants fan, but he was embarrassed enough that day that he wasn't going to wear his jersey. Frankly, I know a little bit about it right now because I've been wearing Notre Dame gear this week. I'm a 2006 alumnus of Notre Dame, and I'm a little bit ashamed because that Northern Illinois loss was horrendous. And, speaking of my bookie, I mean, if you put money on, I'm glad I didn't put money on that game because that would have seemed like an easy win for Notre Dame that went into the game like something, I don't know, top 5 in the country. But bringing it back to the Giants, Peter, this is what gets people fired. This is what gets not just the quarterback benched, which is something everybody's watching for and looking for. This is what gets coaches fired in season, and this is what gets Joe Schoen out the door if things don't change. Great question, and thank you for the super chat. R0B also co-hosting that space this morning on X, says, "Hey, Pat, thank you for today, brother. It was awesome to have you join us, my man. You're welcome anytime, sir." R0B, another loyal day oneer here. Thank you so much for saying that. And thanks for having me. That was a lot of fun. You know what's crazy is when these chats, when this Talkin Ball Live, when those spaces that I jump in on with you guys, when those get going and they're fun, 45 minutes goes by in a flash, doesn't it? It's just amazing how, listen, I love doing this. I know you guys love this team. You love this sport. And you love learning about what's going on with them. And also, I learn a lot from you guys as well. But that was a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun on that R0B, and I was grateful that you guys had me on. And thanks also to you guys and everybody else in there who was recommending more people to jump in on the content creator series that we do here, because the first episode with Authentic that we did, that was a lot of fun. If you didn't see that, guys, please go check that out. It's on the YouTube page. Anything we do here will live on the YouTube page after that, so you can always go back and rewind and rewatch. But that episode with Authentic was popping, and I look forward to having more collabs with Giants content creators in the future. D-Kit says, "Buy the freaking Boom Chaga. I did. It's good." It's true. He did. I'm able to see it when people do. So you can say you did, but I can tell if you're lying or not. D-Kit is not lying. He did. And it is a good product. I'm telling you. I think it'll do something for you, and I think you'll enjoy it. I don't think you'll regret. And like I said, you don't have to subscribe and get a new bag every month. You can just use that code once, buy one bag. If every person who popped into Talkin Ball Live bought one bag and canceled their subscription, it would send this podcast through the roof, which is where we intend to go no matter what, thanks to you guys. All right. Hunter says, hypothetically, we lose badly this week? Could we see changes in coaching, or they're going to give a bigger leash than 2 weeks? That's a really good question, Hunter. I do think there's scenario. Listen, we're as far as we could see, Daniel Jones still getting all the reps. I mean, when they were doing routes on air, Drew Lock gets like one throw here or there, but it's pretty much Daniel Jones. And then on the other end, Tommy DeVito is throwing to the running backs and linebackers. By the way, not to pivot too hard here, but the Giants are no longer letting us film video of individual drills during practice. So technically, the Giants are not required to let us video their individual portion of practice. We're not out there for long. It's usually about 15 minutes or so. We don't see their walkthrough period before stretch. Then they let us in while the team is stretching. Then they go through individuals. They do a build up. They start doing routes on air, handoffs, etc. And then when they go to their teamwork, this is during the season, they send the media off, and then we're not allowed to watch that portion. But the time we're out there, we've always, in recent years, we've been able to video whatever we see. And that's actually some great content I feel like we get to put on my YouTube channel and YouTube Shorts. You can see, we can show you Nabers making catches in practice, or Tyrone Tracy Jr., how shifty he is with the ball in his hands, things like that. The Giants are no longer letting us do that. Coming down from the organization, I don't know why, but they've decided they're going to restrict it and only give us the maximum they are required to. So if you see me putting a video, it says Giants are practicing today, here's week 2, and it's them stretching. The reason that's the only video you're seeing is because that's the only video I'm allowed to post. So things get intense in East Rutherford. Also a tense feeling in the locker room, I got to be honest with you. Today was not a good vibe. I think part of it was something had happened with Nabers and they weren't sure exactly. Guys were a little bit uncertain about where things stood there, even though they weren't really talking about it. But the vibes are very low, very low. And it's almost like an awkwardness to the locker room, if that makes any sense. So, but Hunter, I went off on a tangent there. Sorry about that. Are they going to make a change if it's bad this week? I mean, I think if it's bad and like if they get blown out, right? If they get blown out in this game and they don't score points, yeah, I mean, I personally think you could see a change at the head coaching spot. I still think maybe the other day I was talking to some people and thinking that if this keeps going really badly, the Dallas Thursday night primetime game, if the Giants are a disaster early this season, and then that night is a disaster on national television, right? Because all these games they're playing right now are, because of their time slot, are a bit under the radar. But if they were a disaster there and it's already, the team's not scoring, the quarterback isn't making plays, you have injuries, guys going down, and Daboll continues to get out schemed like he was in week 1, I can see that Dallas game as being like a, kind of like a watershed moment, if that makes sense. But, I personally think this Washington game, I know the reps haven't changed, so I guess they don't intend, if the reps really haven't changed according to what Daboll told us, then I guess they're running with Daniel this week, come hell or high water. To me, though, and you guys can tell me if you think I'm wrong, don't you think that if, like, hypothetically, if it were 13, let's say it's 13-3 Commanders in the fourth quarter on Sunday. I'm not saying it's going to be. I'm just saying, like, if it's 13-3 and it's 8 minutes left in the fourth quarter, like, is it time at that point to throw Drew Lock into the game and see if you can get something, right? Because, like, obviously, if this week goes poorly offensively, everybody, the heat turns up on everybody, right? Daniel, Daboll. I mean, it's already up. I don't even know how it can go, higher than what it is now based on what it was at MetLife Stadium on Sunday, which we'll talk more about that as well. Talking to some players about that during the week, kind of off the record. But I think, you go into this game, to me, Daboll and Jones have to have this game. And I said before the season, there were permutations where, hey, this team could not win a ton of games, but if they're scoring points while they're losing it and they're competitive and they're in those games, right, then that's one way to say, hey, we can show progress in this area, that area at A, B, C, and D. But if you're not showing progress on the roster side, on the developmental side, on the offensive side, and your record is bad, right? That's how it gets. That's how it gets bad, and people get fired quickly. And let's be honest. I mean, with Saquon Barkley and the Philadelphia Eagles not far on deck, and if he keeps running wild like he did in week 1, I mean, they have the Atlanta Falcons this week. If he keeps running wild, holy cow. I know that some people would think it's just about what the Giants do, but listen, if the Giants are struggling, continuing to struggle, and Saquon's continuing to go off, I mean, turn the lights off. R0B says, hey, Pat, do you have any idea on how Steve Tish is feeling about the current situation? And do you see him getting involved if things don't change? So I saw him in Houston at the preseason game, and he was more present and more engaged than I've seen him in the last 5 years. I do think he's around more for a reason right now. And I think I've said this to you guys before, but I do think it bears reminding that, whether it was the Eli Manning benching scenario, when, before the game, even there were reports coming out that from my vantage point were not from the Mara side, putting pressure on, like, if this doesn't go right, then look out type stuff before the game. From my vantage point, that was coming from the Tish side of things. That's just my personal, vantage point. And then you had the Pat Shurmur, Dave Gettleman, the firing decision of firing Shurmur and keeping Gettleman, which was at that time, Steve Tish wanted to clean house, and John Mara did not feel like it was fair to Gettleman to do that. So they compromised and they fired Shurmur and kept Gettleman. But then when they got to dysfunction on the second year of the Joe Judge, Dave Gettleman tenure and regime, Steve Tish, it was basically like, okay, last time you got your way. Now I'm telling you, this is what needs to happen. And so in that case, John Mara, again, understanding, like he had told, and the Giants had told Joe Judge, this is a 3-year full rebuild. Come in, change everything you can, change how we do things the way you think would be most efficient to turn us around. And then in year 2, they're talking about firing you. But Steve Tish in that moment, as far as I understand, was the one who said, no, it's time. Right. So that's what we've seen progress over the last 2 firings the 3 firings that I've been here for. So every time a major change occurs, usually you see it when Tish is around more and when you see the heat turning up from that side of things. And I do think that you're going to see heat continuing to turn up there from Steve Tish and that side. I have not spoken to him in the last 4 days about how he feels, but I personally, R0, I think if this week is bad, you guys are asking, could there be a change, right? If this week is bad, at the very least, I think we hear from ownership, my opinion. And that no one's told me that. I'm just saying they know how bad it is with the fan base right now. We alluded earlier to the jersey burning, to people saying they're done with the team already. I mean, I was just at my basketball game and guys who were fans were saying like that they and all of their friends are done with the team already based on how they came out in week 1 and what they look like. So Peter says, Pat, during Hard Knocks, Tim McDonald asking Shane what our identity is if we let Saquon walk seems strange. I mean, isn't that a question that Mara should be asking? I mean, Shane is his boss. Well, so that's a little espresso I'm drinking there, by the way, just to charge me up a little bit. Peter, that's a good question. And I know where you're coming from that Tua's hurt. That's not, you don't want to see that. Oh man. Tua Tagovailoa injured. That stinks. Man, oh man. So you asked about Tim McDonald. Okay, so I know where this question is coming from, a fair place, which is, over the years, the Giants' mismanagement at times you've been able to trace it back to how involved ownership is with decisions that you feel like, okay, this should be a general manager and a head coach or the general manager's call. And yet, why is ownership, as we got into certain situations and decisions, meddling, right? In fact, even if they're not meddling, right? Even if they would fight that they meddle in all these personnel decisions and roster decisions. And listen, we know that ownership has had a hand in certain big decisions of these that over the years that have resulted in the Giants struggling or in some of their dysfunction. But um, you know, the reality is, in this case, I believe that what Tim McDonald said there was a smart, savvy football point made by somebody who, yes, he is John Mara's nephew. And of course, the major point, Peter, about the whole conversation about ownership's involvement, whether it's McDonald, Chris Mara, right, John Mara himself, et cetera, Steve, the major point about that is it's easy to say, yes, he's just a director of player personnel, but also he is the owner's nephew and therefore an extension of ownership. And so, do I have to tread lightly, even if it's a subconscious thing, right? That's a question about the conversation about what's the dynamic in an organization, right? And that's obviously totally fair. Um, and of course has resulted in issues in the past with different staffs. And what I was saying earlier too is whether or not you would agree with that they were meddling, ownership hasn't done a good job hiring general managers and head coaches in a lot of these scenarios too, right? Like in my opinion, Joe Judge of the four coaches who we've seen come in here, Joe Judge was the one I thought who was a good CEO head coach. Obviously, needed somebody who was an offensive specialist to run the offense, just hand it off to them. But Joe Judge was a good CEO. But of course, obviously, it all snowballed. There were elements of that got away from them. Really, marrying him to Dave Gettleman was just, that was not a smart decision. I mean, they should have created alignment, allowed him to bring in a general manager who was aligned with him. But I digress. The point I was making there is Ben McAdoo, Pat Shermer, and really, in my opinion, Brian Daboll, more coordinators than head coaches. And, that falls on ownership too. Now, in this point, though, Peter, I actually think that, remember, I asked John Mara before the season about Tim, and John said that he feels like people don't understand how respected he is around the league for his personnel and his football acumen. And he feels like he's very savvy and that people around the league have a high opinion of how he knows the game. So obviously that's him talking about Tim, talking about his nephew. But in my opinion, listening to that comment after listening to the whole dynamic in that room of the way Joe Shane and other people were talking about players and talking about decisions, that was the smartest thing I think that anybody said in the room, Peter. I don't know if you agree with that or not. But to me, that went to the core of the issue, which was, yes, of course, he was intimating, wait a second, like, should we really get rid of Saquon? But he wasn't saying, let's not get rid of Saquon. He was saying, let's not do that without making a plan for what we will look like without him. And I think after 1 week, that is staring bright in our faces. The element of, oh my goodness, they don't know what they are without Saquon. They don't. There might be an idea that they've crafted in the background of what they will look like or should look like, right? Like Brandon Brown said that Daniel Jones has a 4x100 track team at wide receiver. So obviously they think they should push the ball down the field and be explosive. But, they really are grasping at straws, at least coming out of week one, it seemed, at what they should be, what they're supposed to be, and what their identity is. And that's right, Peter. My main point coming out of that game is I think Tyrone Tracy needs to be a workhorse. I will say this, at practice in warmups, he has been the second back up this week behind Devin Singletary. So last week, you remember, Singletary's on in that first drive, right? And he got a carry and a swing pass, I think, for -6 yards. And then when they forced a turnover in the red zone and the offense got the ball back at the 20, the first down play was a handoff to Eric Gray. Okay. Not the right decision, in my opinion. And based on seeing Tracy up in front of Gray this week, I think Tyrone Tracy Jr. is going to get some volume this week. I think he's going to get some touches. And I will tell you this too. And, we were just talking about football and about what kind of player he is and how he likes to get into games. Because if you remember, he got that one carry, it was like a stretch right. And the play was for him to, with kind of like a zone blocking scheme, run out to the right with his eyes upfield and cut hard upfield into whatever gap he sees and hit it. But it turned out the edge did not set the edge on the defense, and he could have taken it out to the right. But he wasn't fresh. He wasn't like in the rhythm of the game. It's his first NFL game. He's getting used to the speed of it, how he sees it. You saw he had that 10-yard run that was really nice off to the left side, came back to a holding penalty by Wan'Dale Robinson for 2 yards. But Tyrone Tracy Jr. is telling me, like, if you get me more volume, I get in a rhythm. Like, it's just how he is, it's just like like a shooter in basketball, like a volume shooter, somebody who gets in rhythm and they feel it. So that's what he was saying. If he gets more touches, like, he'll get in a rhythm and he feels like that'll be a really good thing. I want to see that. That's what I want to see. I think the Giants and Daniel Jones, especially, I think Daniel Jones needs a running game, because the other thing that Tim McDonald said was, not just that, what is our identity if we let Saquon walk? He also said that if Daniel is our quarterback, we need a running game. And so that was the big thing there. The big thing there was twofold. Yes, no Saquon, so what do we look like? But the second thing was, we need to be able to run the ball if Daniel's our quarterback. And in week 1, they couldn't run the ball well. Also, in the preseason in Houston, what did we see? Devin Singletary, 10 carries, 20 yards. Yes, one was from a yard out. It was a touchdown run after a deep completion to Slayton. But my point is, the line of scrimmage, the offensive line, was not moving bodies properly. And John Runyon Jr. said it best. He said, we need to establish that so the play caller can trust that he can call those runs and we can keep getting yardage and moving the ball down the field, so that we can also set up play action and protect our quarterback and our pass game. So, all right, let's go to the next chat here. Taking a look at this Tua hit. Oh, man. Lowers his head. Yes. Oh, yeah. It's that fencing position, posturing. That looks like a concussion. That's sad. That's going to be his career is going to be in jeopardy with another injury like this. Joel with a $10 super chat. Thank you so much. And guys, if I didn't answer your questions, of course, if you didn't purchase a super chat and I didn't answer your questions yet, then, patience, please. And I will get to them. I will. I will say these chats have gotten popular and crowded enough that if you're at the very bottom of the chat, there have been times where I haven't been able to get all the way down to the bottom, but I will warn you if I'm shutting off the live. Usually we've been going about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. So I'll let you know if we get to the bottom, to the end, and I'm not near your question, at which point maybe you pop a super chat in if you want it answered. All right. So let's see. Yep. Dolphins officially rule out Tua Tagovailoa with a concussion. All right, I'm going to get through these next couple of super chats, and then we will do our trivia for a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee, so stay tuned. All right, Joel says, why is it that Daniel Jones never audibles or actively changes protection? Eli was so active at the line, almost like Daniel does not have a good handle on reading defenses. He does check to things at times, Joel. He does make those checks, and also Brian Daboll, has those, kind of the 2 play calls in one, where Daniel can go into the huddle and call out the 2 plays to everybody. And then everybody knows the first play is on. And then if he kills it, the second one is in the holster and ready to go. And everybody knows what it is. That's, unfortunately what happened in the Buffalo game last year was Kafka gave kind of like a dual call to Tyrod Taylor, and Tyrod took one of the options when obviously shouldn't have taken it at the goal line. Ended up in a bad situation, but obviously that was a mistake to even give him that in the first place, and a game management mistake on Daboll's end to allow that at all. So, but yes, that they do that. Daniel does make maneuvers at the line, make changes at the line. It is a complicated offense, Joel. So, a lot of it is, hey, let's put in a play and talk about all the permutations of it and rep it a ton out here on the practice field. And then let's go out here and we'll call it against the right defense and we'll run it and we'll get it right. Right. So it is a complicated offense to learn, but no, Daniel's problem, Joel, is not pre-snap. It is post-snap. His issue is post-snap. So like what you saw from Brian Flores was one of the things that happened there was, like we've talked about, Brian Flores set up Dable by making it look like he was going to pressure heavy and pressure consistently and blitz zero and all that. And that was what Dable was expecting. But Flores was looking like he was sending a lot of rushers and then dropping guys into coverage and dropping different guys into coverage every time. And so he was changing the looks for Daniel post snap. That combined with more guys in coverage now, combined with Dable not having the correct personnel to give Daniel Jones kind of a lot of weapons to operate with outside, and the fact that they prepared for one defense and they saw another, to me, that was a huge game plan issue, not just a quarterback issue. And that's part of why there's so much pressure on Dable and not just Daniel going into this game, in my opinion, is I think everybody there knows that his game plan really fell flat on its face. So yeah, that's my best take on that. But that was a really good question, Joel. All right, let's get to Peter's. Peter checking in with $20. Thank you, Peter. He says Joe Schoen has drafted poorly, and to mask that, he signed free agents to cover the poor drafts, filling holes. This goes against everything he said when he got hired. Draft good, sign your own. I've lost trust. How do you see it? Yeah, no, that's a really perceptive point, Peter. I think that it's interesting you bring that up, because we were just talking about this on the space this morning with R0B and NYC1Ts and DKIT. We were talking about how Joe Schoen said build through the draft and supplement through free agency, and that's the only way to really do it, to do a rebuild, to build a roster, to build the depth and the high end, and then sustain success, right? But first of all, the misses in the draft have led to him signing free agents in those spots, right? Whether you want to call Cordell Flott a miss or not, the fact that they don't have a true number 2 corner on the roster led them to re-sign Adoree Jackson, even though that wasn't in their plans at all, right? The fact that they drafted 3 linemen in 2022 and none of them have proven to be any good, at least to this point. The fact that, they then need a right guard in Greg Van Roten, who they signed in July. They need a right tackle in Jermaine Illuminor. They need a left guard in John Runyon Jr., who they signed, right? The fact that if you look at Joe Schoen's drafts as well, not just the misses that have led them to have to sign free agents there, but also the idea that if I said to you, name me one player Joe Schoen has drafted who clearly is a long-term high-level contributor for this franchise for the next 5 years, who would you say, right? There are guys with potential. There are some guys who have made plays here and there, right? But even a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau, whose sack numbers were up last year, that's a player where you wonder, can we count on him? He's been inconsistent. He sometimes says the wrong things, right? There are questions about, okay, he might be a good player, but can he ever be a great player? They go and sign Brian Burns, not only to add a premier player to premier position, they're also paying a guy almost $30 million a year at a position where they drafted Kayvon number 5 overall, because they're not showing faith that Kayvon's that guy either. And then, you couple that with the decision to re-sign Daniel Jones and let Saquon Barkley go. Listen, you can feel like Saquon Barkley, obviously when he was here, there were problems with the offense too. So everybody knows that the offense struggled when Saquon Barkley was here also. That's obviously a fact. However, if you were going to give Daniel Jones the optimal situation this season, like say, okay, this is now or never, we're going to give you your best chance to succeed, right? To me, and I've said this before, but I'll say it again. The way to do it was to keep Saquon and draft Malik Nabers. It wasn't to let Saquon go and replace him with Nabers. That's, I think, a huge flaw and a huge mistake that's really going to come back to bite him. All right. Ready for the Estate 98 trivia question? Here we go. This is the Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard live. Estate 98 trivia question. First person to get the right answer in the chat wins a free bottle of Estate 98 coffee. Okay. This is actually, so we get stats on the NFL kickoff weekend. So it's like stats around the league. And they actually break it down by, teams' ages, the amount of, first round draft picks playing quarterback for teams, which teams have the most players over 300 pounds, which teams have the most guys under 6 feet, average height, weight, experience, age, etc. for all these teams. It's really fascinating data, but I always love this one every year. And here's your trivia question. So a total of 234 colleges were represented on kickoff weekend active rosters. So that means active rosters for week 1 of the 2024 NFL season. 234 colleges were represented. Here's your trivia question. Which 5 colleges are represented the most on rosters in the NFL in week 1? So which college football rosters had the most players on NFL rosters active in week 1? So to get the right answer, you need to list all 5 colleges in your comment. So I need to see all 5 colleges in your comment. So that's the top 5 colleges represented by players, by number of players in the NFL in week 1. If you can give me that answer, you win the bottle of Estate 98 coffee. I'm going to go back into the queue, answer some questions, because that's not an easy one. And then I'll see who gets the answer correct first. All right. Dave Z says, do you think Isaiah Simmons will get any snaps this week? Maybe some kind of third down package with Kayvon, Mr. Unaccountable Thibodeau. Ooh, that is a shot. Sliding inside. Feels like Bowen doesn't know where he fits. Yeah, Dave Z, it's really interesting. Like, obviously, you want the coaches to put whoever they think is best on the field for your team, right? So if they feel like Isaiah Simmons didn't earn it over certain other players, okay. The problem is you re-signed a player and you reassigned him to a different position, and you made a lot about, oh, we're going to use him differently. We know how to use him well, right? And all that stuff. He was used in a targeted, intelligent way last year by Wink Martindale. And, Isaiah Simmons, we all know he's more of a specialist than a full-time player. We all know that. I think, honestly, deep down, he knows that there's certain things that he's really good at. There's other things that are his weaknesses. And if you use him for his strengths and you let him play free and use that athleticism and blitz and cover running backs and pass coverage, then he's content playing special teams, does those things as well. The fact that they reassigned him and put him at a different position and now he's not playing is insane and ridiculous, and to me reflects on the coaching staff and, yes, their lack of ability to figure out how to use him. Shane Bowen did say today, I asked him, he did say that Simmons is going to play on defense this week. I don't know how much that means he's going to play. I mean, Dane Belton played the money spot, which is where Simmons likely would have played if he did. And then they put Flott in the slot, right? Depending on the personnel packages, that's somewhere where Simmons has played during the preseason as well. But they use Belton at a position and Flott at a position where Simmons normally would have rotated in. I mean, Micah McFadden's coming back into the lineup. So last year with Wink Martindale, it was kind of like McFadden would be on for rundowns and then Simmons would come on there as, like a passing down, third down, cover the running back and pass coverage or blitz specialist, right? But that's not how they've shown they were going to use him here. We'll see if they do use him here. They did have him at that spot kind of later in camp at times. And even though he's been with the DBs and the corners, they are listing him still as a safety / linebacker on the roster. So I think, personally, this is the game. And you guys, I think, will enjoy my podcast with Logan Paulson that's going to publish on the Believe Network on Friday morning. I personally believe that Simmons is a good player to unleash in this game because Austin Eckler in the passing game is somebody you need to neutralize, is a shifty running back. And I think Simmons, with his range and his athleticism and talent, that's a guy that you really need to get on the field, let him loose. And listen, he's a proud veteran. He's a former first round top 10 pick. Not a good idea to bring a guy into the locker room who, listen, he's a great guy, but why bring a proud veteran who expects to play and who you're telling him, here's how we're going to use you. This is why we're re-signing you. And then don't play him. Of course he's going to be upset. He should be upset, because otherwise just say, you know what? We don't know how you fit. We don't see how you fit. And then, you go from that point to he finds a different place or a different, kind of a different situation where he feels like he could thrive more. And I think you guys probably have seen it, but if you didn't, in the New York Daily News, I wrote about all of Simmons's comments, what he said, essentially things like, I hope they brought me here, didn't bring me here for nothing, right? Hope they didn't bring me here for nothing. He said, I hope they know what they're doing more than I think I know, right? Which means, like, I hope they know what they're doing more than I think they know what they're doing. And so a lot of shots at the coaching staff there and the defensive coaching staff. So he is not pleased, not happy, but also with a heavy heart. His best friend was just shot and killed, DeAndre Overton. Really sad. His best friend from Clemson, they lived together for 3 years. And Isaiah was kind enough to talk to me about the loss of his best friend. He called him a blood brother. He said he talked to him every day. He talked to him the night before he was killed, and it's really weighing on him. He said his mind is stuck there. So definitely on his mind. And, everybody kind of just throw some thoughts Isaiah Simmons' way because, personally he is hurting. And I can't tell you really like enough about, I brought it up. I said to Dexter Lawrence after the game as he was leaving the locker room, hey, sorry about your college teammate. And he said, thank you. And then I saw Isaiah this week because I didn't really see him after the game. And I talked to him about the playing time. And then I asked him a few questions about DeAndre. I told him I was really sorry. And he was nice enough to talk about it. And I went over to Dexter Lawrence again, and I asked him if he minded if I asked him a couple questions about his late friend. And I apologized again for the loss. And Dexter he's actually started getting emotional. And he basically, politely said, not right now. These guys are really broken up. I mean, they're really, really, really broken up about it. All right, let's see if anybody got the trivia question right. All right, let's see. Okay, the correct answer is, well, I don't want to give it away yet. Okay, so NYC1T says Bama, Georgia, LSU, Notre Dame, Texas. No, really good guess though. DKIT says Georgia, Alabama, Ohio State, Michigan, LSU. No, good guess. Where are my entertainers? Says Bama, Michigan, Ohio State, Texas, Oregon. No. Hunter says LSU, Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Notre Dame. No. Good guess. Jacob says LSU, Bama, Georgia, Texas, Ohio State. Nope. Alex, no. Dave Z, no. Peter, no. I'm a fan, no. D Kit, no. Let's see. No. Wait a second. Here we go. I think we have the winner here. Alabama, Ohio State, Georgia, Notre Dame, and Michigan. NYC1Ts gets it correct. NYC, I think you looked that up. I think you Googled that because you have them in the exact right order. But I'm just kidding. I'm just calling you out. Obviously, you're allowed to search it. Maybe you were able to find that on the NFL's website. I don't know if they put it out there, but congratulations, NYC1Ts. Send me a direct message on Instagram. My account is at PL, my initials on NFL. Send me a direct message on Instagram with your address information, PO box, wherever you want it sent. And Estate 98 will send you a free bottle of their coffee concentrate. It makes about a half a month's worth of coffee. You can also use it in espresso martinis. It's good for mixer in that regard. But yeah, the stats are Alabama 61, Ohio State 51, Georgia 45, my Fighting Irish of Notre Dame 41, and Michigan 40. The one that tripped all of you up was LSU. LSU is sixth with 39. So you all know your stuff. You had LSU right on the fringe there. But close but no cigar. NYC1Ts, thank you for playing. Thank you for winning. Thank you, everybody, for participating in that trivia. All right, let me get back into the queue here. Mel says, let's see. Isaiah Simmons better play as a linebacker, 5 to 10 drop coverage packages. That guy has not peaked yet. So sorry, guys. I'm going to have to get involved with developments. The coaches are learning on the job. Very well said, Mel's. Gary says, what's up, Pat? Thanks for the Nabers update. Do you think he will play? I mean, I hope that my sources are not telling me, hey, it's probably no big deal, and then that he doesn't play the game. I mean, because that would be disingenuous on their part. I trust the people that I'm asking, that I'm talking to. It's not just one person. It's 3 different people, essentially, that are telling me versions of the same thing about Nabers. So I can't sit here and tell you how they're going to handle him in practice on Friday, but I think, at the very least, if what they're saying is accurate, he should be on the field in some form, doing something, making sure everything feels right. And I do expect him to play. Yes. Mel says, how are they going to stop Kayvon and Simmons blitz options? Someone is messing with my Giants. Watch every coach interview. There are tells from their body language. All right. Yeah. Mel's, you see it. You see it. Listen, you got to deploy something differently. One thing that Logan Paulson mentions in our preview, our Commanders Giants preview episode, which you'll be able to see on the channel and on the Believe Network audio, on Apple or Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, is he feels like Jaden Daniels, like if you don't blitz him, you're helping him, rookie quarterback. If you let him stand back there, obviously the Giants want to trust that 4-man pass rush, but they just played Todd Bowles and the Bucs, and they used some confusing coverages and blitzes and dropping guys, kind of like Brian Flores did to the Giants, to speed up his process, to confuse him a little bit post-snap, things like that. Bowen and the Giants need to get more creative in that respect. That was one thing Logan said. He feels like if they don't do that, it'll play into the rookie quarterback's hands and make things too easy on him. Danny Dodd says, Pat, did Daniel Jones throw Nabers a hospital pass in practice? I have no idea. I don't know exactly what happened. Antonio, what's up? Antonio is another dedicated follower and fan. Says, will Micah McFadden be full go this week next to Bobby? Yes. How much more playing time will Adoree get compared to last week? Don't know. It's a little interesting. Shane Bowen got asked about what they would do with Nick McLeod out. Nick McLeod, by the way, not going to play. You see, when a guy doesn't practice like this for 2 straight days, guys, he's not going to play. So you're down a corner. To me, that probably means, based on what Bowen said, that Trey Hawkins is going to be in the lineup. I don't know how much playing time he will get versus Adoree. I think Adoree Jackson is still working back into playing shape, to be honest with you. So I still feel like it's going to be a rotation. Jakob Johnson on special teams. Do I expect that? And on offense on some plays, possibly. I do think, Antonio, that Theo Johnson missed an assignment or two. And listen, he was far from the only one, but he missed an assignment or two in that game. And I think that it wouldn't surprise me if you saw either a Jakob Johnson factoring in more in those blocking situations, or even if Daniel Bellinger, who I don't have confidence in as a blocker. That's the reason why they drafted over him like this. But, if he has a better sense of understanding the play calls and knowing his responsibilities while the rookie is still acclimating, maybe you see more playing time in that regard there, like as far as kind of being the key part of a run block, Let's see. Dolphins are a no-show again against the Bills. I know. I'll be honest, Hunter. I guess I'll throw myself under the bus. I thought that this was the wrong time for the Buffalo Bills to go down into the heat. Like, it's so early, right? Close enough to the summer for the Buffalo Bills to go down into the Florida humidity. I just thought the Dolphins, would be much more prepared to play in this environment, but I don't know what I was thinking. Any practice squad elevations I'm expecting this week? Let's see. Well, so last week um it was Ty Summers, the linebacker for special teams, and it was Carter Coughlin. But as we know, Carter Coughlin is hurt. So this week, I would expect it to be um, Ty Summers again. And, at that point, it would either be, I guess it would be Curtis Bolton. I guess it would be Curtis Bolton, their other kind of like special teams linebacker who's now back in the fold with Carter Coughlin not around. So that would be my guess at the moment. With Jakob Johnson on the active roster, yeah, it's a possibility he factors in there as well and gets those extra snaps, blocking snaps, maybe that, maybe it's not Bellinger. Maybe it's Jakob Johnson getting more extra blocking snaps at tight end instead of Theo Johnson, the rookie. But my early guess at the call-ups would be Ty Summers, the linebacker for special teams, and then also Curtis Bolton, linebacker on special teams. Although, we all know here that, like, if Nabers, for some reason, it turns out it's more of an issue than they realize as it's, getting closer to game time. Like a guy like Isaiah Hodgins, right, on the practice squad, people like that, can't forget about those guys, right, as well. Interesting thing, Nick McLeod being out. They're going to need a new player at gunner over there. So I'll come back to you guys on Friday, kind of on, and kind of let you know what I'm seeing there. I mean, Drew Phillips is a guy who's been on special teams a lot and been on the outside at times. We'll see where they go in that direction. Obviously, Bryce Ford Wheaton on the other side. I do think Gunnar Olszewski will go on IR. Amir Smith-Marset, is he going to be the starting punt returner and kick returner until Gunnar is back? I do think they're going to work him in quickly. I don't think they should run Darius Slayton out there anymore. Do you expect Slayton to play this week? Antonio says it looks like he's trending that way. He was progressed in the protocol, put a red non-contact jersey on for this practice and participated in a limited fashion. So that was another step. So as long as he keeps progressing, then, I do expect him to play. Barb says never was impressed with Tua. Nothing has changed watching this game. So that was pre-injury. And yeah, I agree. D-Kid says, thanks for the time today. Really enjoy it. Are you sensing a circling of the wagons mentality inside the building? D-Kid, yes. And yeah, we talked about that a little bit already, but no worries. You asked that question right off the bat. And that's a really good question. And yes, locker room is tense and tight. Team is restricting how much we video compared to what we've done in the past. It's very, very uptight what we're seeing from the Giants right now, very early too. Listen, I know I kind of sound like the Grim Reaper sometimes when I'm talking about this stuff, but I feel like I've just covered a lot of losing football and I've been in a lot of these situations a lot. And I'm telling you, I think barring a miracle turnaround right away here, it looks like it's going to be over soon. Let's see. Okay. Barb thinks the Giants are going to win Sunday against the Commanders. An optimist, Barb. Great to see. Let's see. All right. OG says this season will be over by week 5 or 6. Could be over earlier than that. Yeah, as D-Kid says, OG, I can't believe you are so optimistic. As Ken says, week 4 Dallas game, it will be over. That looks like it too. Matthew says, I'm curious to know from Pat if Locke got more snaps this week in practice. I do not know if he's been getting reps. Daboll said he wasn't going to get them. That doesn't mean he's not getting them, right? He probably wouldn't divulge it, even if they were. I will say, from what we see on the field at the beginning of practice during individuals, like when they go into the red zone and they do their one-on-one drills, receivers versus corners, Daniel's making literally every throw. And then he might make like 8 or 9 throws. And then Drew Lock comes in and makes 1 and then goes right back out and Daniel takes all the rest. It's like Drew Lock's not getting a lot of work there, So if the rest of the practice looks like that, then the answer is no. It's such a delicate balance because they know they have to do something and change something. But if they start even in practice, like taking Daniel out of reps and giving Drew more, you're already showing less of a sign of confidence in your starter. But then again, like you already did show less confidence in your starter. You tried to draft somebody to replace him. Your GM is telling another GM on a sideline of a college game while he's scouting a top quarterback that it must be nice not be scouting the QBs. I mean, it's already out there that you don't trust the guy. So, why not prepare to possibly have to move on? Intel says, exactly, this is therapy. That's right. Intel thinks they'll fall to 0-2. A's channel, what's up? Great to see you. Great to see you. Yeah, hey, Boise. Nice. Welcome. Welcome. Thanks for being here. Boom Chaga says, Obed. That is right. That is right. And shout out DKIT. No doubt about it. T. Gerardo says, don't need an offensive identity. We need a functional offense. Yeah. No, T, you're absolutely right. And I think what I'm saying, like I asked Brian Dable that question this week. I said, what's your preferred offensive identity? Like, what do you want it to look like? And he said, we want to score points. I want an offense that scores points. Scoring points is our identity, the identity that I want. And that was funny. And obviously he's just being serious. Like, we just got to score, right? But to your point, T, they need a functional offense. My point is you get a more functional offense when you go up on your whiteboard, right? Theoretically or literally, and you say, okay, what personnel do we have? What can we be and what do we want to be? And then do we fit these things into that? Do we have to pivot to a different way that we have to run? Like, for example, just to make it a simpler thing, like if you have a basketball team and you want to be bombs away from three, but you just have more height than every other team in the league and you don't have a lot of shooters, you're not going to still be a team that shoots a lot of threes. You're going to be a team that, takes the ball to the rim, defends well, tries to hit the offensive glass, feeds it into the post, takes elbow jumpers, right? Like you have to play to, your scheme. And in that case, you're trading for a shooter, right? You're trading a future draft pick for a shooter. But my point is, like, you have to cater your team to what you have personnel wise, but also you need to have a governing philosophy of how you're building that offense and that roster underneath the umbrella of here's what we want to be. The frustrating thing, T, is I do know one thing they want to be and believe they should be and believe they were going to be is a team that controls the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. So maybe they can do that this week against Washington. But in that first game against Minnesota, they didn't control the line of scrimmage on either side. Dexter Lawrence and Andrew Thomas were the only people controlling their portions of the line in a large way. Otherwise, no one else was really doing their part consistently enough there. And so, if they think they were going to control the line of scrimmage, and then that's what we saw, again, it was only one game, I know, but they have to be able to control the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball with how they're built. If they don't, they're going to look horrendous because those are the elements of the team that they invested more in this offseason, the O-line, and then Brian Burns, the pass rusher. Barb says, agree, Pat, they have no identity. Diamond says, Pat is the GOAT. Love that. Pat GOAT. Love that. Peter says, Dable said scoring points is our identity. Peter says, does Dable seem uptight to me? Yes, he seems uptight to me. He even more so than before. Peter, I think, there was a moment the other day at the press conference where he announced that Darius Slayton was not going to do anything in practice that day because that's what he had been told. And as he was talking, a few of us noticed Slayton walking out onto the field with his uniform on and his helmet in his hand. Now, it turned out that that Slayton wasn't going to actually practice. He was just going to be out there for, I think, stretch and warm-ups maybe or something like that. And so he was a non-participant, but he was out there. But, he had to basically call in and get the answer from somebody, presumably from the training room. And, these are just disconnects. Like to me, there are things that I criticize Dable for, right? The play calling getting outcoached in week one, obviously the dysfunction of the coaching staff, his lack of composure last year. But then in that scenario, to me, that's not his fault. He's getting the wrong information from someone. Even if it changed last minute, like you have to get that information to the head coach before he goes out in front of us and gives us the wrong info. And so I think he's in a position where it's lose-lose in a lot of ways. And the only way he's going to get out of it is just by winning games. He's got to win games. But, what's going on here? I mean, the neighbors situation obviously seems like they might have dodged a bullet, which is a relief. And if you're just joining us, I started this Talkin Ball live with Pat Leonard by updating everybody, if you didn't see already, that sources told me tonight that Malik Nabers, the Giants' number 6 overall pick, is, quote, okay, that he had some tightness and soreness in his leg. So different people described, one person said he had tightness. One person said he had soreness. They both said, though, that versions of okay. One person said 100%, like he's 100%, essentially like he's fine. And then another person said there's not much concern. And then I was also told that he didn't require any scans to double check that the injury wasn't more severe than believed, like that kind of thing. So that obviously seems encouraging. Another person said he got banged up. A little banged up was exactly how they described it. So a lot of different versions of the same comment, obviously more encouraging than what it could have been when we first saw that happen, heard it happen, how awkward it was in the locker room, kind of following all that. But again, the Giants year in and year out, these injuries are a problem, with the same training staff in place. Coaches get blamed for it, how they practice, all of those things. And why isn't accountability spread all over? Why isn't there a deeper look at, you can't be getting your top player injured in a practice in week 2 with your season and people's jobs on the line. It just can't happen. NYC says, my boom chaga. That's right, baby. Mel says a lot of holes with open Giants wideouts Sunday. Dable has to send the play calling back upstairs. The holes are not seen as much eye level. Joe Judge, Dable hindering your progressions equals ego. Jim Osborne says run to pass or pass to run. Well, we lost a great runner and our O-line presumably pass blocks better than run blocks. No wonder we have an identity crisis. Jim, really well said there, Jim. Jim, very well said. That's a great point that I did not enter into my conversation there. Excellent point, Jim. Maybe the best point of the night so far about exactly this offensive identity part that we're trying to get to the bottom of. You're right on the nose. Van Roden and Illuminor come from a Raiders offensive line that was better at pass protection than run blocking last year. Okay. The Giants O-line is built to improve the pass protection, but we saw throughout the offseason, they weren't moving the line of scrimmage very well in the running game. So as Jim said, you get rid of Saquon Barkley, you get an O-line to protect the quarterback, but it's not built as well to run block as to pass block, hence identity crisis. Very well said. Very well said. But like I said, more Tyrone Tracy. That's the key to me. More Tyrone Tracy Jr. So, and fantasy owners, Tyrone Tracy Jr., prop bets on Tyrone Tracy Jr. I don't know what's out there on him right now. I got to check. I got to kind of check. But if there's anything out there on props on Tyrone Tracy Jr. in that Giants game, we got to hit it. I'll see what we got going on here. All right. Let's see. D Kit says, Pat, wow, look at the subscribers. How did that happen? Yeah, no, I know, D Kit, looking at the subscribers. So what he's referring to is that on the Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard YouTube channel, on the PL on NFL YouTube channel, my subscribers on YouTube have shot up almost to 3,200. So we just crossed 3,000 the other day. I think really what's happening here, D-Kit, is what we're doing is just very unique. Like there's so many people who create great Giants content and NFL content out there, no doubt about it. But the fact that I am covering the team for the New York Daily News, a veteran NFL reporter, veteran sports reporter, and columnist who has sources in the NFL, and that we're going so consistently on here and coming really straight from the practice field, straight from the locker room after the games. I just think it's a unique element. And also, you guys bring the great questions and insight. Like tonight, I couldn't have written a better script for how we have jumped to different poignant conversation points than what you guys have laid out in your questions, providing insights of your own about either what's wrong or what you want to see fixed. Like this is just a really collaborative dialogue, like from my vantage point. I mean, you tell me if I'm wrong, but I feel like it's a really collaborative dialogue. And that's why the subscribers are up, because of you guys. That's why. All right, let's see. Dave Z says Pat's got that big chaga energy. Dave Z, respect. All right. Let's see. Okay. All right. What do we got? Peter says, great having you in the space, Pat. Please come back in. We have a great following. Yeah, you guys really do, Peter. Thanks for having me. That was awesome. You guys do have a great following there. That was fun. I mean, that we could have done that for 3 hours if I had the time, right? That was a lot of fun. MJ, if you're in here, I don't know if you are, but MJ, if you're in here, I believe you got the trivia question correct last time. So remember, if you get the trivia question correct, you have to direct message me an address to send it to you, or I can't tell Estate 98 where to send it. So make sure if you get those trivia questions right, send me your address on Instagram, PL on NFL. Barb says she enjoyed the spaces today as well. Thank you, Barb. Let's see. AB says the Giants roster is set up pretty similar to the Packers, but their quarterback can operate it. Yeah, I would say also AB, they do have more of an identity on both sides of the ball, like things they want to be, ways they intend to play. Like they have types they like in certain spots, right? Whether it's body type, whether it's a type of player to run a specific part of that scheme. And they draft these wide receivers really well, right? Like size, athleticism. The Giants have some pieces, but they're more specialty pieces, right? Like Wan'Dale Robinson, Jalen Hyatt. These are guys who are like specialists at doing a couple things. They're not like take over game players. Nabers has been drafted to be that, but Darius Slayton is still, he's not only number 2 wide receiver, but you could argue that based on his chemistry with Daniel Jones, his pre-existing chemistry with Daniel Jones, that he still is their most reliable and valuable wide receiver from a standpoint of giving Daniel Jones a comfort zone as he continues to acclimate with Nabers. Peter says, subscribe and hit the like button, guys and girls. That's right. Thanks for reminding everybody. Let's see. Intel remembers the early days. Intel's a day oneer as well. No doubt about it. Let's see. DKIT says, Penix was a clear first rounder. I wanted him, Pat. Yep, no doubt. Matthew wanted to know how the energy is in the building. Dable seemed to me to be pretty defeated in his press conferences this week. Matthew, very perceptive of you there to say that. Listen, one person, I heard a secondhand comment. One person said that they heard that Dable is kind of walking around like it's over already. Now, I don't know how to perceive that exactly. My perception of that is that, like, to say someone's walking around like it's over already, to me, that sounds like, okay, this guy's not changing anything. He's not making an emergency decisions. He's not pressing the panic button, not panic button, but the urgency level is not changing. It's just kind of like, hey, let's just play it out now. Not a what's the point attitude, but kind of like a throw in the towel. I mean, listen, that back-to-back quarterback runs at midfield, followed by the punt on 4th and 3 from the 49. Like, what the heck was that? That reflected no confidence in the quarterback, in the offensive line, in their pass blocking. I mean, geez, come on. AB says Penix would take our offense to the next level. He doesn't take sacks and he can attack all 3 levels. He's going to play at Atlanta this year. I keep telling people that. He's going to play in Atlanta. Jacob says, Dave, you're taking my job. That's right. Anyways, smash that like and sub button for Pat on your way in. Jacob, thank you so much. Another day oneer, Jacob Petruzzi. Thank you so much. Yes, guys, please hit those like buttons while we are live. I know you guys are probably doing other things while you're listening, while you're checking in, but please smash those like buttons. Like I said, we just want to remind you real quick who's sponsoring these and making these possible here on the Believe Network and on the PL and NFL YouTube channel. It is MyBookie's 10th year anniversary, and now MyBookie and Talkin Ball are partners. You can see MyBookie's logo right up here. MyBookie, 10 years, celebrating 10 years. And bottom line with MyBookie is whether it's an upset, whether it's a shootout between two contenders, whether you're looking for a backdoor cover, whether you're someone who always likes to bet the under, it's MyBookie is the place for you to go in and cash on your bets every single moment. You want to make every football a winning season, go to mybookie.ag, bet anything, anytime, anywhere. The special things going on right now, risk-free Thursdays. If your boosted bet doesn't hit, you'll get your money back. Weekly no sweat bets, win-win bets all season long. We'll have a promo code coming to you, special to Talkin Ball Live. So just like Boom Chaga, the best ways to support our channel, in addition to the super chats and the likes, but the best way to support is to try the products that are sponsoring us and support them, because they will see if you're using the Talkin Ball code when you try it. And like I said, if every person does it once, right? If you use those codes and try these products out, they see on the back end that everybody who is a Talkin Baller is going into mybookie.ag and trying it out, is purchasing one bag of Boom Chaga on the subscribe and save, is purchasing one bottle and getting a special buy one, get one from Estate 98. All of those QR codes, all of those Talkin Ball codes, that adds up to support for us to keep doing these Talkin Ball lives. So thank you so much. But MyBookie, glad to be on board. And like I said, if you're already on mybookie.ag, you already know what I'm talking about. But they also have a new loyalty rewards program for you if you're there. It's called MyBookie Plus. So it's very simple. The more you play, the more you earn. And as you go through the tiers and progress, it unlocks exclusive promotions. You get, great giveaways. You get cash back in your account. So go to MyBookie, bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Also brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee. Like I said, 10 seconds to make an iced coffee. It's a coffee concentrate. You take a tablespoon, put it in a glass with ice and water and stir. You got nice coffee. It's delicious. It's amazing. It's from El Salvador. Go to estate98.com/Talkin Ball to get a special buy one, get one free deal. And of course, sponsored by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants and heart-healthy compounds. I put it in my coffee every morning. DKIT bought a bag. He loves it. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks and immediately feel the difference. I personally feel a post-workout like energy boost from Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off that first subscribe and save order. So right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30 using our code. You'll see it right here on the bottom of the screen. Wait, where is it? Talkin Ball 25 right there, Boom Chaga, the code, or the QR code right there. Click it, hit it, start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. All right, we are rolling here on Talkin Ball Live. Thank you all for being here. If you're new, I am Pat Leonard. I'm the New York Daily News NFL columnist and Giants beat writer. I'm in my 9th NFL season and really grateful to be covering the Giants, covering the league for the Daily News, and also here on the Believe Network, doing the Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard podcast, where we do 3 lives a week during the season, Mondays and Thursday nights at the halftime of Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football. And we do Talkin Ball post-game live after every Giants game, home and away. I go up to the press box after coming out of the Giants locker room and the press conference with Brian Daboll, and I tell you right away what the players were saying, what the coach was saying, and my takeaways, observations, analysis, breaking news, league source information coming straight from my phone to your computer or phone. And it's a great way to kind of digest whether it's a win, a loss, a tie, as we saw with the Commanders a couple of years ago, bringing all that to you guys. Also on Mondays, Benny Fowler, Super Bowl champion, helps me break down the week around the league. So it's called First Down with Benny Fowler here on the Talkin Ball with Pat Leonard podcast and channel. And that, I think, is fantastic content. The first week we were talking CJ Stroud, Dak Prescott. We did talk Daniel Jones and the Giants, Saquon Barkley, and on, Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of just pulse of the league stuff. And Benny really plugged in and understands the X's and O's and also understands what a locker room looks like, healthy ones, toxic ones, etc. Just really digging deep with great analysis into the football part of it all. Let's see. All right. DKIT says we have to support the live streams and get as many people in before Pat is banned from the building. Yeah, exactly. Taking away the video, the locker room feeling tense. What's next? Kicking me out. No, they won't do that. That's funny though, DKIT. That's funny. Let's see. All right. All right. Let's see. We got NYC1T says Islanders fans got a billboard, and spoiler alert, it worked. Fired the GM and Charles Wong sold the team. That's right. That's right. All right. Okay. Sharky, thanks for being here, but I'm not going down that road. No offense. NYC says Notre Dame, yeah, with tears. Yep. I know. Just absolutely killer. R0, I think I answered that Steve Tish question about how he's feeling about the current situation. Yep, but thanks for dropping that in. Let's see. Shout out to Drake May, says Sharky. Let's see. Sharky says, Pat, do you think Daniel Jones should go up to the front of the locker room and give a speech to everyone on Friday or whatever? You know what, Sharky, I think at this point, it's just about scoring touchdowns. I mean, sounds boring, sounds obvious, but you and I and everybody knows it's really not that complicated at the end of the day what people want to see, and that is productive football, consistent football, and not making the same mistakes all the time. It really just comes down to that. I will say, at practice right now, they have a thing where like Nacho, Raheem Nunez Roches, he kind of stomps around before some of their practices to get everybody fired up. And today he was kind of yelling something like, like, where are my dogs? And then a bunch of guys like, barking and that kind of stuff. So that was kind of how they were livening things up at practice, trying to get everybody pumped up, jacked up. But like I told you, I don't like the energy. It doesn't feel good to me. Dave Z says there's an idea, a few billboards of fans burning jerseys on John Mara's route home to the stadium, to and from the stadium. Also, remember when we were talking earlier about John Mara and what gets him and what gets ownership really fired up and ticked off. The other thing is this is 100th season, and like that story Carl Banks told the other day about Lawrence Taylor saying we could grab 11 of us right now and be better than this, like that kind of stuff. I mean, they're honoring the 100th year anniversary of their franchise and all of their legends, and the team was getting booed off the field as their legends were walking onto it. That is what's going to lead, those types of things lead to, firings. Robert says Daniel Jones no longer leads quarterbacks in interceptions. Giants win on Thursday. Nice point. All right, let's see. Tony says, who is your team, Pat? I don't even have the luxury, Tony, to root for an NFL team anymore. Um, I joined the Daily News in 2010. I've been covering things basically since, I was the managing editor at Notre Dame's paper covering football and basketball. I was the editor in chief of my high school paper while I was still playing, varsity sports. I did root for Notre Dame when I was a student there, but if I were covering games there, I would always, be sitting in the press box doing it normally. And that was kind of like a training ground for being able to do it when I got out of college. And I'm from Philadelphia, so I grew up rooting for all the Philadelphia teams in every sport. But, you don't have a luxury for that. And so like when I covered the Rangers, I've told this story before, but I think you'll like this story. I covered the Rangers long enough where it got to the point where I grew up rooting for the Flyers, but then I got to the point where not only did I not, I basically started to feel nothing when I was watching the games, which is not a great feeling because you kind of want to feel the energy of the sport, but you also want to be objective. If you're not objective, you can't do the job that I do, at least in my opinion, to the best of your ability. And so, like I covered the Winter Classic in Philadelphia at Citizens Bank Park between the Rangers and the Flyers. And that was a moment I remember distinctly that it was really strange to see how objective I actually felt. Because it was like, wow, the kid in me would have absolutely loved this and been wearing like a Bobby Clark jersey or like a Mark Recchi or something like that. You know what I mean? But then you start to get to know all the players and all the different teams and around the league. And then, like, for example, with the Rangers, like I root for the Rangers right now. Like I root for the Rangers because I got close to a lot of people in that organization, a lot of players. I had a high opinion of it. Like Chris Kreider and I covered Chris Kreider for a long time. And I pull for him big time, shoot him a note every now and then, say, hey, congratulations or nice work or stay up or whatever like that. Like I'm a big fan of Chris Kreider. And now, I do cheer for the Rangers, follow them in the playoffs and always pulling for them. And I live and die with their games just like everybody else. So you start to cheer though for people, Tony. Like you start to really just cheer for people because there are some people who are like analysts in sports who openly say they root for certain teams, but I am not that way. I mean, like Sharky says, what's your college team, Pat? He likes the Tar Heels. Like I'm Notre Dame. And I do cheer for Notre Dame. Unfortunately, this year that means despair and disappointment, it appears. So need to see more from Mr. Marcus Freeman, obviously, head coach. But as far as who is your team, like in the NFL, it's just all about, like I said, you meet certain players and you like them as people, and then you get close to them as people, sources, whatever the case is. And that kind of thing, but you don't root for teams. Let's see. Kyler says, if Jones bombs tomorrow, what do you think happens? In-game change or after? What do you think the sports TV media and social media will be? Is the heat on for staff? Good work as always, Pat. Thanks, Kyler. Kyler, you always ask really pointed and really good questions. Kyler, I think if the offense is doing nothing all day tomorrow, like we saw in the first game, I think an in-game change has to be on the table. I mean, I thought an in-game change should have been on the table in week 1 just to feed the fans a bone for like, hey, we'll try anything to try to dig ourselves out of this. But like I said in the preseason, and I did believe this, and I do see this vantage point, and I feel like it's hard to stick to it, but you also you have to think about, okay, we're going all offseason deciding this is our starter versus over this person. So if you decide a guy's your starter and then you go all offseason and you say, this is our starter, and then at the first sign of adversity, you pull them and you say, oh, wait, never mind. You basically are admitting you didn't know how to evaluate the position in your own players there either. So that's a tricky catch-22. I mean, if they're a disaster offensively, though, and they're losing late and they haven't scored many points at all, right? Like I do think an in-game change is on the table. If they're losing, but if they're losing because they have, let's if it's 25-20 in the fourth quarter, or if it's, 20-13 or something like that, then I would imagine they're still trying to see if Daniel Jones pull it out and see it through, especially because he's had so much success there, and then go from there into week 3 at Cleveland and then see where it goes from there. But, I think if the offense struggles early enough, that has to be on the table. And then is the heat on for staff? Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is even uncomfortable for Daboll in the sense of like Bobby Johnson, offensive line coach for Washington. That was Daboll's guy. He brought him from Buffalo. And then, Daboll was a part of scapegoating him along with Thomas McGahee, special teams coach. And then other people, jetting out of the organization, not wanting to work here. But, definitely awkward for Daboll there, uncomfortable. And then you have, like I said, keep an eye on what the Eagles and Saquon Barkley are doing. That's a big part of this. Franklin checks in with a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Franklin. He says, I heard on X that you said, Pat, that Shane drafted Nabers win now instead of a developmental player because he was afraid of losing his job. True? Did I say that? I think definitely he drafted Nabers to replace Saquon as top offensive weapon, to change their identity offensively and also to build for the future. But Franklin, in order to get to the future, Nabers does have to produce at a good enough level that the offense is competent enough this year that you're seeing him grow for sure. I don't know if I said that. I did say that, you know what I think you're thinking of? What I said was that he traded for Waller last year and gave up a 3rd-round pick as a win now move. That last year, coming out of the first playoff season, they were kind of drinking the juice and saying, actually, this rebuild's a little bit accelerated. Let's go. And then they fell flat on their face. And now they're saying this has always been a rebuild. But it really turned out last year that the Waller acquisition was an example of them trying to, bring in a veteran who can produce and help them win type thing. So I think that's more like what you're referring to there, or what I said, if I remember correctly. That's But back to your point though, Franklin. But yes, like for example, like let's say obviously they didn't do this, but I'm saying like if they could have traded back and drafted JJ McCarthy, like once they couldn't get up to get the quarterbacks, they decided let's get a position player who can help us now, right? So in that element of it is true, right? They went and got a player who could help them now, is what they did at 6, and and also in the future. So Franklin also says, how long is Daniel Jones's leash? When does he get benched? I personally think the latest it happens if things continue to look similar. I was actually debating this with some people on the beat, just like friendly conversation. I think like if they're not scoring points and they're not winning games, I'm not even sure the Giants can trot him onto the field to start that Dallas game in week 4. Like, I think based on how the fan base handled week 1, to me, I would be surprised if they did that. Like if they go 0-3 into that game, then I find that hard to believe that they would trot him out there even to start that game. But then again, like I've said before, Drew Lock didn't push him in the preseason in the summer. I like Drew Lock a lot, by the way. Like, great dude to deal with, great dude to talk to. Already talked to him about his famous Jeezy moment on the bench in Denver. Love it. So big fan of Drew Lock. And, listen, all these guys, when Tyrod was here, even, Daniel, Drew, Tommy, like you want them to succeed. You want them to put their best foot on the field. You want the team to find somebody to create a spark. And, at this point, like I said, you don't root for these teams, but like, I want winning football. Like I've covered so much losing. Like, let's just get some W's around here, Alex says Daniel Jones' contract was a mistake. We won't be the only team. Tua extension looking rough right now. Yeah, and we all knew at the moment Tua signed it too. Dave Z says, thank God the cap penalty for releasing Daniel is manageable after this season. At least Shane can say he got that part right. Yeah. Yeah, no, the one part he got right was making the signing, but creating like a 2-year window to get out. But of course, you still made the signing, and now you're building 2 disastrous seasons potentially around him, and you might not make it past him. Robert says earliest Jones gets benched is week 6, in my opinion. I think that really just depends on how bad it goes, right? Like like I said, if they score a lot of points in this game, win or lose, then Daniel's not getting benched. Like if he's not oh my God, like they're only scoring 6 or 8 or 9 or 12 and they're getting blown out type stuff, right? Versus winning like or losing a shootout type stuff. D-Kid says, does anyone know the earliest a head coach has been fired during the season? Wasn't it Urban Meyer? I think, at least recently. I don't know if that was the earliest ever, but by the way, did I tell you guys, did you see in my story in the Daily News that there was a website that predictively said, or like it has predictive analytics, and after week 1, it adjusted to the Giants having the highest chance at getting the number 1 pick in the NFL draft in 2025. So Urban Meyer was fired on December 16th. So he was 2-11. So he was fired 13 games into his first season. I don't know if that's the quickest ever. I think it might be. I'm like going back and looking. I mean, if that's not, it's up there, but that's the one that jumped out to me when you asked that question. NYC 1Ts doesn't like what he's hearing. Awkward locker room, mixed stories about neighbor's knee. Right. Yeah. Like one person saying that he has soreness in his leg. It's like he's listed with a knee, weird. Hopefully he's all right. Obviously, the comments that came back to me were more encouraging than I was expecting. So that's good. And also remember, we thought his left ankle sprain was pretty severe during camp, and he played in a game against the Texans like 6 days later. So, Hunter points out Matt Rule week 6 was definitely one of the earliest. Matt Rule, right? But Matt Rule was 6 games into his 3rd season. But I hear what you're saying. You're talking about just earliest into a year, right? That is pretty damn early. Alex thinks that the Giants would want to make Kafka interim head coach. The best head coach candidates won't be available unless you want to go to the Belichick direction. Yeah, no, interim wise, you're not throwing somebody in there who's not on the staff. So Kafka presents as the most likely option. You do have, like Mike Groh's a guy, son of a head coach, Al Groh, that kind of stuff. Who else would, I guess, be on the table? I mean, really, to me, I think it would obviously be Kafka, assistant head coach, a guy who the organization essentially gave a title and a little bit of more money to prevent him from making a good career move. So kind of screwed him in that respect. I mean, I asked Kafka today what he did during the game on Sunday because he wasn't calling plays. And his answer was, I'll give you his answer here. Mike Kafka's answer. He said it was pretty much the same as it's been all year, just minus the play calling, but the communication up in the box, getting down and working out and working through all those things on offense that we have to talk about in between drives. So, I mean, doesn't really describe much. I think what he's saying is that he monitors the offensive. He's probably helping them with the charting and tracking of the defensive coverages they're seeing and situational awareness of what's coming and what's happening. And then in between drives is relaying some information down to the sideline, but by and large is, of course, completely sidelined. D-Kit thinks Kafka would be a calming influence. Hunter says benching Danny, even though the right choice, pretty much signs the walking paper for Dable and Shane. Yeah, that's the one thing is when they bench him, then there's nowhere else to go, right? It's like taking over play calling full time was the first big move. And then once you bench Daniel Jones, it's like, where else do you go, right? Who would call the plays? Well, if Dable got fired, I would imagine Shea Tierney would walk out with him because they're kind of attached at the hip. I don't know if that's true, but if Tierney stayed, right, maybe Kafka would loop him in and partner up there. I don't know how that would work, but Tierney and Dable are very close. So I don't know what would happen there. Mel says Joe Shane hit on more than one pick, guys. Let their bodies develop more. Theo, tight end, Phillips, corner, Newbin, Neighbors. Their hunger is off the charts. UCLA linebacker Darius Muasau just starting. Yeah, I mean, the rookie class looks like it has some promise, but again, guys need to turn into like significant, consistent contributors and not liabilities, right? For sure. NYC1T is right. Responding to my stories about Mara. Mara felt like it wasn't fair to insert failure. Right. Tale as old as time. Yep. Let's see. Sharky says, I still trust Joe Shane and Brian Dable. We'll see. Interesting. A2Z me, what's going on? Says, greetings, Pat. Hockey season approaching helps deal with the Giants' lame duck reality. Oof. Yes, it does. I love hockey. Love puck. Let's see. Robert says, at least the Devils look good this season. Let's see. David Wainwright says, Daniel Jones reminds me of David Carr, who was the number 1 overall pick in 2002 for the Texans, played several years getting battered behind a historically bad O-line, which ruined him. No doubt. That's a really good comp there, David. Good point. And I think, it was interesting. Daniel was actually asked about that. Like, have you taken so many hits and had bad protection where you don't trust it and things are in your head and now you're not the same player? And Daniel said, no, like I'm mentally tough enough. Like that's part of football. You face a pass rush, you face hits, and you, I have to handle it. He said, I think I've done a pretty good job of that over my career, but obviously I have to do better. So he wasn't fazed by that question and said that it wasn't the reason, but hard to disagree with you there, David. Let's see. OG says the Giants are going to suck for another 5 years. They fired 3 coaches, kept a bum QB, and let the best players from the team go twice. ODB, Barkley, McKinney, Julian Love, Evan Ingram. Right. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. No, listen, one thing I believe, and I know every player situation is different, but OG, you hit on something important here. You don't get better by getting rid of good players. And this isn't just the Giants. I mean, in sports in general. Yes, sometimes a guy is a problem in the locker room. It doesn't work with the fit of the team, right? But like the Giants players too, they know. By the way, what did you guys think of Darius Slayton sharing Saquon Barkley's Player of the Week award on his Instagram account on the story? Did you see that? On the NFL account, he shared it on his personal Instagram, and it was just the green icon of Saquon, Player of the Week. I'll tell you what. They're obviously really good friends. So it's like supporting a friend, just like, Neighbors put up Brian Thomas Jr. Is that his name? The receiver that he played with at LSU's on the Jaguars, scored a touchdown in week 1, that kind of stuff. Even in the preseason, I think he might've posted like a Jaden Daniels highlight, even though he's on the Commanders now and he's a division rival. But I think that stuck out to me as interesting. I think it's hard to imagine that Slayton doesn't know what he's doing by doing that, kind of needling the upstairs front office a little bit. But I don't blame him personally because these guys are personal friends and they want to support each other. But listen, he could just like text him and say congratulations. Obviously, doing that is sends an interesting little message. Let's see. Danny Dudd says Carr was a highly touted QB coming out, first overall pick. DJ played at Duke and was mediocre there, drafted 6th overall because he reminded Mara of Eli. See the difference? Yeah, no, but it is a good comp as far as maybe how an early bad O-line and pass rush is turning a quarterback into somebody who is essentially shell-shocked, right? Let's see. Real Cold G says, hey, Pat, what do you think contributes to the Giants' slow starts? Real Cold G, I think the thing that stood out to me in week 1 was the offense can't get in the end zone. And, it wasn't just Daniel Jones, but since Daniel Jones has been here, he's been a guy who has moved the ball pretty well between the 20s. But when they get into the red zone, they struggle to score. The best they've been at it is in 2022 when they had Saquon running. I think he had 10 touchdown rushes that year. And they had Daniel Jones had 7 on the ground. and they were working them off of each other. The defense having to key on Saquon a lot, and Daniel Jones using that mobility and working off of Saquon and the defense's attention and scoring there. But as they pass in the red zone, as they protect in the end zone, when he makes decisions in the red zone, when the field shrinks, they really struggle there. And I mean, real cold G, let's be honest about it. As depressing as it is going into week 2 right now, talking about the team, in that week 1 game, the offense comes out, looks like they don't know what they're doing, but they punt. And then the defense comes out ready to go, fired up, big plays, Dexter Lawrence sack, then a Drew Phillips, a forced fumble, recovered by Bobby Okereke, and the offense gets the ball back at the 20. So what's missing there? It's play calling, it's execution on offense, it's the personnel decision of putting Eric Gray in as the running back on the first down of that drive. And who was it who missed a block? Maybe John Runyon Jr. On the interior, I think. Go back and watch that film. I think it might have been him, but that goes for no game. Even when they were inside the 10 after Jones got the first down with his legs, which, first of all, I think if Daniel held the ball a little longer on the play where he run for the first down, it looked like Nabers might have gotten over or gotten open closer to the goal line on a comeback route, but he didn't wait long enough. But then Daboll called a read option looking play that was really just a design quarterback sweep to the left. And Wan'Dale Robinson was lined up to Daniel Jones's left. The snap went to Daniel, and it was supposed to be like a fake handoff quarterback sweep. Now, I don't know how much he's supposed to sell the fake there, but I know in those moments you're supposed to sell it enough that it at least keeps a couple defenders or one defender on the edge opposite honest. And Daniel, if you watch the play, the fake was not a good one. And Wan'Dale, I think, was really quick across Daniel as well. So I think it was both of them really that contributed to it. Bottom line is no one in Minnesota was faked out. They've all, like, teams know that the Giants like to run that in the red zone now. So they ran that and no one was fooled. And if you watch the Minnesota defense's eyes, they all just followed Daniel on the play. So, and it went for like a minimal gain. And that's just one example. All right. TV says Tua stinks with a great running game and wide receivers. Now he's concussed again. DJ haters need to relax. Well, no, it doesn't mean that Daniel Jones is good because Tua stinks, but I know you're saying it's bad in other places too, for sure. But hey, TV, hold on a second. What, if you're going to say that, okay. Now I am not a big Tua fan at all. I do not. I personally do not think Tua is a great quarterback. I think he, in the right system with McDaniel there and with those receivers, he had a really good year. But he's not like, I don't think he's the best quarterback or anywhere close to the top quarterbacks in the league. But let's be fair that last year he did lead the league in passing yards with 4,624. And he had 29 touchdown passes to 14 interceptions with almost a 70% completion percentage. So to say Giants fans need to relax on Daniel Jones, I agree. Again, I'm not a huge Tua fan, but listen to those numbers, right? Daniel Jones has never approached those kind of numbers. And listen, I hope Daniel does well and I like him. Robert Mead correctly says, if this is a long-term injury for Tua, the Dolphins season is over. Notorious says DJ was just hopes and dreams. Bangkok Baseball says, Pat, do you think the Giants offense will score more than 6 points this weekend? I do. Logan Paulson was telling me on our podcast that he thinks the disrespect of the Commanders defense is a little bit much for his liking. He was there in Tampa. He didn't feel like A, it was as bad as people think it was, and B, he felt like they really did play a team that was humming on all cylinders. He said Liam Cohen, offensive coordinator, or Cohen, and Mayfield and the Bucs were just kind of really sizzling. He felt like they actually looked like a better team than people realize in that game. So, now listen, other people I've talked to in the league do feel like the Commanders are susceptible on defense. They're going to play a lot of bend but don't break, I think. But Joe Witt Jr., their play caller on defense, their defensive coordinator, and Dan Quinn, the head coach, it's his defense. They are going to mix things up, send some things at the Giants that they haven't seen, that they've saved for this game, that type of stuff that they're going to scheme up against Daniel Jones. And I don't think it's going to be easy for the Giants offense at all. And frankly, being around the team and close enough to them, I don't have a lot of confidence in the Giants to turn it on. I don't think they're going to have 6 points, but would it surprise me if they lost? I think I made a prediction. I think that they were going to lose by 8 points, mid-20s to mid-teens on the podcast with Logan. So giving that away to you guys here on Talkin Ball Live. Thanks for being here. Remember, Talkin Ball Live, Mondays and Thursdays, halftime of Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football, and Talkin Ball post-game live after every game. First Down with Benny Fowler on every Monday, breaking down that week's NFL action. And also special guests throughout these weeks, different podcasts. And we're grateful to have my bookie, Boom Chaga, and Estate 98 on board. OG says, I think Kayvon, Slayton, and others want out of the Giants organization, especially seeing Barkley having a successful week 1. The team knows Daniel Jones can't get it done. OG, I do think, in reference to the other comment earlier too, the whole Julian Love, good player, leader on the team. The general manager lets, it's not a player that they bring back, and their initial offer is viewed as a low ball. Even though, Julian did end up overplaying his hand and not getting as much as he thought on the open market, but it still doesn't sit well with the Giants players that he was not brought back and handled that way. Xavier McKinney was a leader last year, good player. Saquon Barkley, leader, good player, right? And even Darius Slayton, the way that his situation was handled. Sterling Shepard, the way that his situation was handled. Dave Z says that back in 2020, that Joe Judge opening press conference had me so fired up. I wanted to run through a wall for him. That own goal line quarterback sneak was just brutal. Yeah. And I think I've told this story before. That was essentially, in a lot of ways, that call was like a middle finger to Dave Gettleman in the front office from Joe Judge, because it was basically, look at what I'm working with on the field here. How the hell do you expect me to succeed with this? Was kind of the message. But obviously, optics drive it, and it was a bad look, and ended up contributing to his firing. But yeah, the Jake Fromm decision, which was Dave Gettleman's decision against some other options that other people preferred, was what led to that moment. Yep, can't come back from that. Joey B, what's going on? OG says, you noticed Jihad Ward playing better than he ever did for the Giants. He was very motivated in that game. Oh, I'm glad you brought up Hottie, because this is one thing that stands out to me about the Giants locker room right now. Hottie, Jihad Ward, he was a veteran in that edge rusher room who did not tolerate bullshit. And he's a one-of-a-kind guy. He tells you what's on his mind, right? Things aren't getting by him. He keeps people in line. And in that way, I think he was a good influence on keeping Kayvon Thibodeau on the straight and narrow, as far as either, you're a rookie or you're still a young guy learning, make sure he knows his place, because Hottie's the OG and that kind of stuff. I think not having a guy like Hottie in the edge room, Burns is here, but he's still a younger guy, and you're paying him a lot of money to make plays. He's not a babysitter, even though that's what he was, kind of portrayed as in the offseason, as a training partner for Kayvon. I think they missed Jihad Ward, though, from a mentorship standpoint with Kayvon early on here. I like Kayvon personally, but, I think that he can use somebody to lean on certain days to keep himself focused on the only things that matter. Let's see. Mel says we could get a mint for Kayvon and Slayton. If they do, it will make a pretender a contender faster. It's their life. That is at least 2 second-round picks and 2 fourths easy. Mel's, I hate to break it to you, but I disagree with the price of what you would get for those players. Teams, and this is all at every fan base and, around the league, it's typical to overvalue your own players, what they would be available for on the open market. If you could get a second and a fourth for Darius Slayton, the Giants would have already traded him. That is a second is a high pick to trade. And even Kayvon right now, the way he's playing and also the way that he's talking and conducting himself after that game like that, he kind of needs to show more to be someone that you could quote unquote get a mint for, So I actually disagree with that. But I do think Slayton is a trade candidate, and it's interesting that you're bringing up Kayvon as a trade candidate, because I think what you're noting, and kind of as OG did and some others did, is it's just a weird feeling about the locker room right now. OG says, hey, it's complicated. That's why they paid him millions of dollars. If anyone can do it, I would be an NFL quarterback. NYC says Daniel definitely has pre-snap issues, but he can't get the huddle right, gets too many men, delay of game, procedure penalties. That can be due to a lot of things. I mean, listen, obviously, yes, that's on him too, but that can be due to a lot of things. Like that can be when the play call comes into him. That can be substitution errors by the assistant coaches, like not pulling somebody off or not sending an extra player on from their position group, that type of stuff. Obviously, Daniel's in the huddle and he's the quarterback, but Bangkok says Daniel Jones has no aura. He always gives off the vibe of being below average. We need a quarterback with some semblance of personality. You need that quarterback from his first game in Tampa Bay, right? Where he's running into the end zone with the ball up in the air. That was a great image, right? El Gigante says, Pat, this reeks like the locker room is on the brink of collapsing. I heard Jonathan Casillas, as he referenced, that players see that Daniel Jones does not give them a chance to win. Right, but they also know that no one outplayed him in camp. All right. Gigante, I think that's a really good point. That's Casillas knows what he's talking about. He was like a finger on the pulse guy. He was a leader when he was here. Somebody who always knew exactly what the feel of the locker room was, what the temperament of the locker room was, and he was a part of a locker room that collapsed, so he would know. Bangkok clarifies he didn't say they lost faith in Daniel Jones. He said it could happen. Big difference. Don't spread false news. Oh, okay. Yeah, right. So he's saying that could happen if they lose faith in him. Alex says Giants could be starting 5 rookies this year, maybe more than one UDFA too. Yeah, but there's other teams that are younger. Let's see. Notorious says eventually our best players will want to be in winning situations. If we don't give them that, they'll find their way to a winning situation. Yeah, true. Oh, Leonard Williams is another one that they got good value for that trade, but Leonard Williams, a guy that they liked in the locker room, is gone now. I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right about what players look around the league at. And they listen, if you and I can watch some of these games and we can see how different the football game looks for, teams like the Chiefs and Niners and Ravens and Lions and Eagles and Cowboys and, name several others, Rams, whatever. Like, look at the Rams. They got all this mess going on, but they have Matt Stafford and Cooper Kupp and they're in a game. You know what I mean? Like you have great players at key spots, and that's how it works. You know what I mean? The Giants know that everything's harder for them. Notorious, by the way, Shane Bowen had a quote today where he said, our best players need to play like they're our best players, or else we're not going to be good enough, referencing like the front and the offensive or the defensive line. And he said he tells them that basically some version of that every day, which is interesting. And he's right. Now, I do think I always push back on the way that some of these defenses, like Robert Saleh's defense, for example, it's predicated upon basically if you have great players to rush the passer in your front four, then your defense looks really good. And if you don't have great players rushing the front four who are productive, your defense doesn't look good as a coach and as a defense, right? And so I feel like Bowen's saying for this defense to be good, those guys need to be good. Now, as a coach, you also need to try to help them, right? Send more blitz packages, send more pressures, whatever it is. So it is on you too as a coach, not just the players. But he's also right that their investments are number 5 overall pick, highly paid defensive tackle, one of the top paid defensive tackles in the league, and a guy considered one of the best defensive tackles in all of football, if not the best nose tackle in football, and the 3rd highest paid edge rusher in the league in Brian Burns. So he's not wrong about that either. Peter says very accurately about Joe Shane's draft history, you're supposed to hit on top 10 picks. That's right. Bangkok says Carson Beck will be the Giants quarterback in 2025. That is possible for sure. Let's see. All right. NYC, remember to DM me your address on Instagram for winning the Estate 98 competition. Let's see. Alex says, Pat, what players do you think could get traded before the deadline? Slayton would make sense, but anyone else? Someone that you could get a lot for. I mean, guys that are on the Giants roster that are not under contract after this year, who aren't, like, because they have so many young guys, draft picks who are on rookie contracts. Guys are really like Darius Slayton, Jason Pinnock, and Greg Van Roten. I mean, Van Roten was a free agent into late July. I don't necessarily think you'd be getting a lot for a player like that. Jason Pinnock, athletic, could help teams as a blitzer and as a depth guy. Darius Slayton could be like a good 3rd wide receiver, but you're probably looking at, I don't know, what are you getting for Slayton at the deadline? Are you getting a 5th, for Slayton at the deadline? Are you getting something better than that for Slayton? And then for those other guys, you're getting late round picks, right? So I don't think there's anybody on their roster that is an obvious, hey, let's ship this guy out and get a ton for him, right? Okay. Peter says, this was earlier when I was answering a question. I'll need the coffee by time this question is answered correctly. Ouch. Was I rambling earlier, Peter? Sorry about that. Dave Z says, Estate 98. It's pretty effing great. Love it. Jackson says, is there any reason that you believe a Giant fan should have any sort of hope at this point? Can't do this for another 18 weeks. When is enough enough? So, Jackson, I would say, let me tell you the things that I think are positives. How about we do that? So Andrew Thomas played very well in week 1. It's very easy to ignore that because the offense really didn't do anything. Only scored 6 points, including only 3 with like more than 20 yards to go after that takeaway early on in the game. But Andrew Thomas played well, especially in pass protection. Let's see. I do think Tyrone Tracy in limited work looked good as a runner. I think he deserves more. That was a small sample size, obviously. Defensively, it was refreshing that Darius Muasau was a late round rookie, was able to hold his own in that game. Now, they didn't stop the run very well as a defense, but he grabbed that interception after Dex forced the hit Sam Darnold's arm and forced that fluttering pass into the air. And he lasted the full game at inside linebacker and wasn't viewed by the coaching staff as, oh my God, we got to get this guy out of here. So, those are some positives to take away. Like I wrote in the Daily News, Graham Gano, really grateful, on the verge of tears about being in the NFL again. And he said that he felt like his career had almost ended and that he wasn't sure he was going to play football again. So he's really grateful to be healthy and back. So, and Jamie Gillen, the punter, and them downing that punt at the 1. Those are some encouraging things to take away. So trying to pour your glass half full, Jackson. I know I only just poured like a small stream of water into that glass and it's not half full with those observations, and obviously Dexter Lawrence. I mean, I think he had like pressures on 7 of 20 pass rushes or something ridiculous like that. It was like a career high pass rush rate for Dex. XST, what's going on? Great to see you. OG says, like, Tim said this is a copy and paste team. This is the longest rebuild I've seen since watching the Giants. I think the Giants should have their stadium instead of sharing. Let's see. Dave Z says they were worse in the mid-'60s until they drafted Lawrence Taylor. He changed the franchise in 1981. Dave Z says if they just ran press man, didn't have to tackle or make a play on the ball, Trey Hawkins would be an all-pro. Oh, my goodness. That is funny. That is a funny comment, Dave Z. You are hilarious. All right, let's see. If Slayton is a no-go, would Hodgins get a call-up? I do think, like if they get more of these guys start getting banged up here, or if Slayton can't go, or if turns out like they need a contingency plan to Neighbors, things like that. Like I think Hodgins could be in the cards. We'll see. Mel says he have little faith. 16 more games, guys with 16 million to spend and trade assets if GM sees it also. Evan says the team is feeling the pressure. Everyone knows this season needs to start to improve or jobs will be lost. That's exactly correct. Also, I did talk to some guys. I can tell you the players are pretty alarmed at how early the boost started and how bad it was in week 1. Like, listen, they know how unacceptable a loss like that is, but listen, they're putting their bodies on the line. They're doing their best, right? They're working hard. They know they're being paid a lot of money to win and play better and score more and do all that. But even though they know people's jobs are on the line and that they might not be as good as they hope to be this season, it definitely caught them off guard how restless and upset and intolerant the entire fan base was. It did not catch me off guard from what we've been previewing of how the season was going to go, right? I said 4 wins. I thought it was going to be bad. I thought this really had the potential to be an all-time bad team. But that had to do also with, hey, like they always have injuries. So guys go down while it's also not going well. We've seen it happen before. But I can tell you the players, like they understand it. They know the fans have the right to boo and all that. But it really sent a message to them of, wow, like this is really not being tolerated here. I think it's one of those things too. And I said this to a lot of people coming out of that game, and I 100% believe it. That wouldn't have shocked anybody if it happened in week 15 of a lost season. In fact, you expect it in those situations, right? So you expect it in those situations where the season's out of hand, you're out of the playoff race, right? And people stop going, it's cold. But for that to happen in week 1, people streaming for the exits in the third quarter, booing at halftime, booing during the third play of the first drive in some places of the stadium, right? It definitely alarmed them. T says Daboll is right. Identity is a BS cliche. Just score for F's sake. Well, T, he's right. Of course, all that matters is he scores. I'm saying you have to build it in order to look like something specific. You don't just add good players and say, now we're going to score more. It's not how it works, So I'm just talking about govern it. Turbo says that the Saints are knocking down the Cowboys this week. That'll be interesting to see. I like the Cowboys to cover there. If you're on your MyBookie account, I like the Cowboys to cover. T. Jardo says bad passes make injured receivers. T says, hell, if men can no, I'm not reading that. Mel says Daboll cannot call the plays this week. DJ hamstrings not fully healed for them. Okay. All right. What is your prediction on if or when Joe Schoen and Brian Daboll get fired during or after this season, says Tino. I think Daboll gets fired during the season and Schoen gets fired after it. Brett says, comeback player of the decade, Pat, my boy DJ, Hyatt and Simmons need to play more this week. All the above, Brett. Love it. What's the leash look like for DJ? Right. We talked about that. Iconic says, Pat, do you think how players go in and out the doghouse with Daboll will lead to problems later like Hyatt? Yeah, no, I mean, I think you saw that with Isaiah Simmons for sure. I mean, and I think Hyatt, he's saying all the right things this week from what I understand. But it's difficult, it's difficult. You want to do a meritocracy, but bottom line is like, you can't, like I said earlier about Simmons, you can't tell guys, here's how we intend to use you, and then pull the rug out from under them. And yes, that is contributing to it, I think. Big Dash says old fashioned. Big Dash, my man. Big Dash, we got to have you on in the content creator series, man. We were talking about that today. We definitely got to do a Big Dash episode, no doubt. Dr. Garrett says, good evening, Pat. We really only have 5 guys on this roster that can be counted on. Hard to win games with only 5 of 22. Right, I hear you. How confident are you with Shane picking our next quarterback? I'm not confident at all. I agree. No, I'm not confident at all. Like somebody said earlier, you're supposed to hit on top 10 picks, and he hasn't even done that. Like people say, well, Gettleman, our best players are Gettleman players. Maybe he wasn't as bad of a drafter as we thought. Well, no, really. I mean, all the good players he drafted were high draft picks. You're supposed to get good players there. Now, sometimes people miss in the first round, but that's where you're supposed to get good players. And obviously he got Darius Slayton as well, which was a good pick. LT said he could get 22 guys. Okay, thanks, Bill. A2 says, with the Giants' luck, they'll probably finish dead last in a non-quarterback heavy draft, so they'll have to make another franchise direction decision. Don't feel good with Mara and Shane there, that's for sure. No Met says, shout out to Pat for rooting for the Rangers, my guy. Evan says, we appreciate the honesty because that drives the organization to improve their standard. The best way to journalize is to be objective and honest. I hope so. I hope that it brings change for the good. Hunter, thank you for that super chat and sticker. Says fire Dable and hire Pat for head coach. I am flattered. Thank you, Hunter, for the coin there. D-Kid says, Pat, I'm not a Notre Dame fan, but I do really like Marcus Freeman. Great recruiter and leader. I hope he survives. Now, 1T is a devout Notre Dame fan, and he's torn over the issue. Yeah, I just think that Freeman needs to prove that he's the guy because he inherited a job I don't think he was ready for. But now you're in a position where you're Notre Dame's head coach. Like, people don't care whether you're ready for it or not. Now you have it. So now you got to go do it, Let's see. Mel says that the Giants better adapt quickly because this is not the same Washington team. Barb says she's a huge Ranger fan. Yep, Chris Kreider. Yeah, I covered the Rangers for 5 years. 3 conference finals, 1 Stanley Cup final appearance. What a dagger Stanley Cup final post final locker room in Los Angeles. Brutal. Bill says Drew wasn't given the opportunity to push DJ, was he? You know more than me. He took all the reps in the spring with the ones, and then when Daniel Jones got healthy, they didn't split it with the ones. But my point is, when Tyrod was here, you could see him on the field with the 2s. Like, there were days where Daniel struggled, and then Tyrod came on with the 2s, and it was like, oh, that's how an offense is supposed to look. But that didn't really happen with Daniel and Drew. Like, when Drew came on with the 2s, they looked like the 2s. Even if the ones didn't look good, they just kind of looked like the 2s. So he didn't push him at all. And yes, it did eventually become like it's Daniel's our starter deal. But I'm just saying, if you have enough days where one quarterback looks great and the other doesn't look good enough, then the players see it, and then that's how it becomes a competition sometimes. So NYC says he misses Tyrod. Bill says he doesn't. He was an injury machine. Capable quarterback, though. 1 touchdown this season. Giants have none. Mel says Daniel Jones is not making it to week 6 if Daboll is play calling. D-Kid says, isn't that the toughest thing, Pat? Spending time around these guys and understanding their aspirations and struggles, but still having to do your job and deliver objective news about them. Tough. Yeah, no doubt. So that's why you got to be professional. It's, I'm doing a job, they're doing a job, and you have to understand it. You also have to understand these players and these sources, coaches, scouts, agents, executives, they're people too, right? With families, et cetera. As long as you show respect and demonstrate respect, Jezer says, Holy shit, we're talking coaching change scenarios after week 1. You guys must be the very best at what you do. Jezer, I'm just telling you right now. Bill Hartnett says, personally, I'm done with the carousel. I'm tired, boss. Yeah, no doubt. Jezer, I'll tell you this. It might feel quick, but I'm telling you the feeling around the team and how Dable's acting and feeling and where it stands is just what I'm telling you. And like I say all the time, I think people really underestimate how bad it was last year and how much Dable had to do with it, even though I know I've reported it a bunch and kind of broke the news on all the big stuff that happened with him and Kafka and Martindale and Joe Shane being on the headsets. But, this is like a continuation of that. It's like, let's see what was the anomaly here. A2Z Me says he can see Dable sticking around. Hard to see Shane surviving. Yeah, I don't see it that way. But Ryan says, glad they're watching the bookkeeping. Daniel's injury clause must be watched. Jezer says he enjoyed everything at MetLife Stadium Sunday except the actual game. Hoping my trip to FedEx will allow me to wear my Victory Monday gear. Yeah, I hope so too. We need some wins to keep this team relevant, man. They can't be irrelevant this quickly. Holy cow. Oh, Madden's Pass, good point. Says Bill Belichick's 1 day with the Jets is the record of quickest coach out the door. That's funny. Bill says it's Northwest Stadium now for the Commanders. Yeah, interesting. Washington's home opener, by the way, underrated element of this game. So not usually an incredible home atmosphere for Washington there, but maybe it'll be a better one this year. New regime, rookie quarterback, etc. Bill says, I like that Saquon still called Daniel Jones after the game. Good guys. Bommy says, big fan, keeping it real. Thank you, Bommy. Really appreciate that. Yeah, guys, if you're new here, subscribe to the channel, please. You'll get all the content. Put your notifications on. It'll tell you when we're going live, tell you what new content's popping up. I put a bunch of giant stuff on YouTube Shorts as well. News updates, breaking news, information, practice highlights, etc. So hit subscribe and hit those like buttons while we are live here. Yeah, that collision with Tua, Michael, that was tough to see him lowering his head. All those fencing postures, so crazy. The NFL, so poor at handling those things in the past. Drives me crazy. Brett says false starts and delay of game penalty hurt early. Yeah, no doubt. 9 penalties. They had, 6 penalties, I think, by the early second quarter or the end of the first, something like that. King Chris says NFL's got to shut Tua down. Like how Tua throws with anticipation. Tonight's game was terrible, though. Tannehill getting a call from the 305 area code soon, says Bill. Let's see. Mel says, man, those guys are college coaches. Listen to how they talk. Got to get better. Got to check the tapes. Got to do better. King Chris says, did you hear the comments about Isaiah comments about playing time? What the hell was that? Yeah, I was the one asking him and reporting them, King. I actually went up to Isaiah Simmons yesterday and had that conversation with him. And so he was venting about, I hope they know what they're doing more than I think I know. I hope I didn't re-sign here for nothing. He's frustrated as hell that he didn't play. It's the first time in his career it ever happened. So yeah, no, I drove that conversation. I was one of 3 reporters in there, and I started the conversation with Isaiah, and then also talked to him about him losing his dear friend DeAndre Overton, who got shot last weekend tragically. King Chris says Dex and Thomas, the only 2 players other teams would want. Yeah, I think that's probably fair to say. Brett says they need to start practicing in an Olympic-sized swimming pool, Pat, 5 foot deep, 4.5 for Wandale. You guys are on a roll tonight. This is awesome. All right, let's see. Coming down the home stretch here. Bill says, I'm so happy Graham Gano is back. We'd have more W's if he was healthy last year. Yep. King Chris says, imagine Pickens and Slayton outside and Nabers in the slot. Bill Hartnett says, Pat, a big dash show would be fantastic. Yeah, maybe we'll get one cooking. Why not? All right, let's see. Brett M says, in a few weeks, Daboll sees Wink walking in the hallway. Yeah, bringwinkback.com. Is that what you're starting that website? Coach Dave says, great hearing you today on Spaces today, Pat. Do you get a sense that Shane is feeling any pressure? I think Shane, what he is trying to do is reinforce to everyone in the organization that this is a part of a process, even though it's a painful part of one. I'm just skeptical of whether that's at this point now just going to be falling on complete deaf ears, especially with the way the locker room's reacting, and the way that the team looks like it could be close to checking out if things don't change, and the way that Dable looks like he's acting like, this is inevitable type stuff. So, I think that it's harder for Shane to sell that. I don't think Shane necessarily, is sitting there saying, I think I might get fired and because there's real reasons I should be. But I do think he sees, I do think he's smart enough to understand what is happening and how it could get to the point he could get fired. I think he understands that from the precedent of ownership and how they've operated. Let's see. I'm a fan says, thanks for the great chat. You got it. I'm a fan. Thank you so much for being here always. I appreciate you. Bill Hartnett says, oh, I learned yesterday if the Commanders want to build a new stadium, they'll probably build it where they are since they already own the land. I found that interesting. That is interesting. Brett says, if McLaurin puts it on Banks, are we done? Oh, yeah. I mean, well, listen, Banks is put in a position where he has to be the number one corner, and McLaurin's that number one receiver. They've had some good battles, so that'll be an interesting one to watch. Yeah, and listen, they're both defenses that try to play bend but don't break and keep the ball in front of you, but we've seen the Giants let the ball get over top of them and behind them anyway. Take care. I'm a fan. Bill says they don't own the land of the old stadium. Brett says, thanks, Pat. You got it. Bill says, thanks for the show, Pat, ahead of time, and drops a $3 super sticker in. Thank you so much, Bill. Thank you. Really appreciate that. Mark Sullivan, what's up, Mark? He says, what do you think about Jameis? His big arm could unlock our receivers. Jameis would be more exciting and interesting, and he would be taking shots all over the field. But, Mark, that would be one of those, it might feel exciting for a week, but then he does throw a lot of interceptions. I mean, and he's fun, but he throws a lot of picks. So I think it would, maybe you'd prefer that over what we saw in week one. I think Giants fans would prefer anything over what we saw in week one from Daniel and the offense. But I think that, that's a be careful what you wish for thing. That said, I mean, don't you have to search for an upgrade somehow? D-Kid says, no, Pat, you don't get to make the personnel decisions that Shane and Dable have made and produce the results they have and get to stay and pick the next QB. No chance. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree. Bill says, I pay for my shows. Value for value. Yeah, Bill. No, I really appreciate you, man. Honor. Brett thinks Deontay Banks will shut McLaurin down. Optimist. Bill, thanks for saying that. Thanks for doing that. Guys, remember we are sponsored here by MyBookie now on Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard. Great to have MyBookie on board. Like I said, their 10th anniversary is here, and they're rolling out the red carpet for bettors. You can bet big, bet confidently. There's risk-free Thursdays. If your boosted bet doesn't hit, you'll get your money back. Weekly no sweat bets all season long. We'll have a promo code coming soon that you can use to log in so they know you're coming from Talkin Ball. So you want to turn your football knowledge into big time payouts, you go to mybookie.ag, bet anything, anytime, anywhere to turn your football season into a winning season. Those of you who are already MyBookie players and members, they have a new loyalty rewards program as well. MyBookie Plus. It's simple. The more you play, the more you earn as you progress through new tiers. You unlock exclusive promotions, giveaways, and cash back to your account. MyBookie. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere. Also brought to you by Estate 98 Coffee. Go to estate98.com/talkinball to get a special buy one, get one free deal on this all-natural specialty coffee with no sugar, convenient for on-the-go coffee drinkers. And brought to you by Boom Chaga Mushroom Super Drink, a natural extract loaded with anti-inflammatory, immune-boosting antioxidants, and heart-healthy compounds. You can easily pour this natural liquid supplement into any of your favorite drinks. I put mine in my coffee every morning and immediately feel the difference. DKIT takes his Boom Chaga. He's running spaces. He's in Talkin Ball. He's doing it all. Boom Chaga, baby. I personally felt a post-workout like energy boost with Boom. Chaga also has the ability to lower cholesterol, reduce inflammation, and improve immune and heart health with its beta-glucans and antioxidants. Go to boomchaga.com today to place your first order. And if you use the discount code TalkinBall25 or access it through the QR code on your screen, you'll get 25% off your first subscribe and save order. Right now, that means a month's supply costs you only $30. Start feeling the difference today at boomchaga.com. That's boomchaga.com. Subscribe and save. Talkin Ball 25, or use the QR code on your screen and right here, and you'll get 25% off. You can cancel the subscription after you order the bag. Really appreciate it. That supports this channel more than anything. Mark Sullivan, speaking of supporting the channel more than anything, $5 super chat. Thank you so much, Mark. Thanks for sharing that. Thanks for paying for this content. Thanks for supporting me and the Talkin Ball live community. Guys, look for my interview with Logan Paulson, former NFL tight end and Commanders sideline analyst and reporter. He has a couple podcasts in Washington as well. He and I break down, you'll see it Friday on the channel. We break down this matchup between the Giants and the Commanders. A lot of intel and insight on Washington's team and how this matchup will stack up for both the Giants and the Commanders. So look for that on Friday. And then I will see you on Sunday live on YouTube, Talkin Ball Live with Pat Leonard post game from the stadium, whatever it's called, down there in Maryland. About 90 minutes after the game ends, I will be up in the press box breaking it down for you all and bringing live updates, analysis, and insight from the locker room, from the players, from Brian Daboll directly to you on Talkin Ball post game live. DKIT thinks it's going to be 24-6 Commanders. Honestly, if that happens, it would not totally shock me, DKIT. Hard for me to predict them not to get in the end zone again, but I wouldn't be totally blown away either. I need to see it to believe it. Evan says, bye, Pat. Bye, everyone. DKIT, thank you so much for starting us off. Thank you for having me on the spaces, everybody. And it was great talking with you to start my day and end my day here. It's actually now September 13th as we near week 2 of the NFL season with the Bills and Dolphins in the bank, and an important weekend coming up for Joe Shane, Brian Daboll, Daniel Jones, the Maras, the Tishes, and the entire Giants organization. Yes, Bill, small press box in Washington, very small. That's actually where Joe Shane was wearing the headsets last year, listening in to, that was part of the storyline of Joe Shane jumping on the headsets and starting to wear them. It was coming off of that Dallas game in Dallas, and then Joe Shane wearing them for 4 games, including in the Giants win in Washington when DeVito was at quarterback, throwing 3 touchdown passes and getting sacked, I believe, 7 times. So, a lot of recent history there at this stadium. And yes, a terrible sightline view for the media at this game. Important to bring the binoculars to this one. So I got to have them while I take that Amtrak down to the New Carrollton train station, getting ready for an important one. Arrival videos also coming pregame from the Giants arrival at the stadium. Look for that all over YouTube Shorts, Instagram, TikTok, etc. And please subscribe and give one last like on your way out. Thanks so much for being here, everybody. Another great Talkin Ball Live. See you next time.